We're ready when you are, Speedy. Just waiting for a countdown. Welcome back, everybody. National Volleyball Association game number 2, match number 2, day number 2. Texas Tyrants versus the OC Stunners. We're going to get started in about 4 minutes. And to set the table with some coaches' interviews, we're going to go to Victoria Dennis right now. Victoria.
Thanks, Matt. I'm here with Gian with the Texas Tyrants taking on the Stunners. Both teams had an L yesterday. What's your strategy to get the win today?
Just focus more, play as a group, communication, heart. That's all we got for today.
Stunners tend to have a pretty solid offense. What defensive cues are you looking at today?
Just reading, good men-on-men block. They can run the ball fast through the middle. Nick Amato's there too. He's two-time national championship. We got to take care of that. But the key to this game is going to be serve receive. So we're ready. We're ready to step it up from yesterday for sure.
Thank you. Good luck.
Thank you.
And we heard it a bit there. He touched on having Nick Amato in the middle, and that's one of those things that the OC Stunners have 4 amazing middles between Shane Beamer, who's just getting back from a season in Denmark and was the Danish middle MVP. They've got Nick Amato, 2-time NCAA Long Beach national championship. Then we've got Kevin Gear added from Penn State, as well as Nick West, someone that's got years of overseas experience. So to see that anchoring this team, yesterday one thing that the Stunners really ran into trouble with was they didn't have a libero, so outside Matt Hilling had to step in. Jake Hurwitz is back in the rotation today, so they're going to be able to kind of utilize that, see a little bit more of a sense of normality, and they're going to be able to get a little bit of flow going here.
Yeah, this team has played together for a long time. They had a successful run last year when they got to second, and they've got good chemistry already. They know how to play with one another. It doesn't matter if you got some guys maybe playing out of position.
Right.
Matt Hilling can play a lot of different positions, right? and then to have a depth of player personnel at a position like the middle blocker position, that's a huge advantage for them as well.
Yeah, and we touched on it a little bit, but I do want to highlight for anyone tuning in for the first time today, Spencer Andrews is a new setter. That's a club setter out of Virginia Tech. So they've changed out from Jeff Schmitz from last year, and they've gone a new direction. But he's definitely a student of the game, loves to keep an aggressive offense, utilize Jair Santiago. That was a big pickup in the offseason. He's no longer with the Ontario Matadors. Anyone that saw them play last night, they're really relying on Jacob Vanderbeek now instead of doing that little the double sub that we saw a lot back in November.
Yep.
So both teams have kind of seen some changes there. So it was working well yesterday for Stunners, and we'll look for them to find a little bit of a system change today. Now I think to switch us a little bit over to the Tyrants. This is one of those teams that we still are kind of waiting to see what kind of an identity they establish for themselves. We know that Gianluca obviously had a great day yesterday. We saw what he's done in the past at USC, as well last season with the Ramblers. Phenomenal player and definitely going to be a boon for this roster. But I'm definitely keen to see what the rest of these guys can do. We've seen some offensive arms in Daniel Jacobs, as well as Tim Johnson, who absolutely soars. Number 17, he's a fun player to watch. Make sure to check out for him.
Yeah, that's great insight, Nick. You know, strong leadership on the Tyrants team. You know, Gianluca's been around for a long time. He played us a lot of good level volleyball at USC. Played last year with the Nva. I think he's gone overseas a little bit here and there. He's from Brazil, so you know he's got that volleyball lineage, right, or volleyball DNA. And so look to him to be a little bit of a player coach, right, throughout this match, and sort of run the team offense and be able to rally his guys and create that sense of urgency when, you know, maybe they need that pick-me-up, because they're going to have to match some pretty high-level energy from the Stunners.
Absolutely, and that's a great point. You know, and you say player coach, and for anyone that doesn't know at home, the fun tidbit here is his dad's actually the head coach as well. So there's a little Grasso. They got one more on the court. They got one on the bench. And, you know, when I was able to talk to them doing the Quest for the Cup episode, they were both online with me, and getting to talk to them about their dynamic, how they're kind of a little 1-2 punch, but at the same time hearing how Grasso Sr., you know, is still, you know, in that position to coach Gianluca. And it's just interesting to hear how that dynamic works, but they complement each other very well. And, you know, it's definitely something you should go check out, that Quest for the Cup episode, if you haven't had a chance to.
And that's a great, you hit it right on the head, like the familiarity with the communication, right? Almost kind of, they can tell what the other one's going to say before they actually say it, right? So that's super helpful, because you know how important communication is in this sport, no matter who you are, on the court, on the sidelines. Super important. So that's a great point, Nick.
One thing that is worth noting, and I think kind of interesting, is number 7, Joey Jarvis, their phenom Canadian outside, has actually, because of COVID restrictions, not been able to play in Canada since November. So when he was looking a little bit rusty at times yesterday, when I got a chance to talk to him after the match and just kind of pick his brain, he was saying, you know, that's the unfortunate reality. We're still living in that COVID world, and while everyone's trying to find ways to return to what normal might be, sometimes for him, volleyball's not part of it yet.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's the new normal, unfortunately. You know, just kind of got to be able to roll with the flow. And for the Stunners, they've got, you know, Jair Santiago as another opposite now. So they really, you know, have loaded depth in that position as well, like we were talking about in the middle position. So to have Joey and Jair as opposites.
Well, so Joey's outside.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. They can all rely on each other to be able to kind of get that stuff done.
But your point stands. They've still got Dylan Emery, who may not play as much, but Dylan Emery's been a part of that roster for better part of 4 years. And when you talk about kind of that rowdy nature of that team, that energy, that's the guy that when you ever want to see who's going to get those guys riled up, get them going, he's definitely more than capable. So I'll be interested to see if we get a chance to see him at all this weekend, keep Jair fresh. That guy's held together by a couple pieces of tape sometimes, it looks like. So, you know, it's all about rolling through the roster, making sure you can utilize that depth.
Yeah, absolutely. It does look like he's got quite a bit of tape on him, on his right arm specifically, from the shoulder to the fingertips.
Yep.
But yeah, you know, they're going to rely on him heavily to carry a big load offensively, block and defense-wise from the end line with his serve. He had one of the bigger serves last year when we saw these teams play against one another, and so, you know, expect to see a lot of action going to number 15 in gray.
Yeah, and you know, I think the interesting thing also, since we've kind of gone into this transition where every team has one match per day, what I really love about that format is we get a chance for teams to play their match. We see how they manage in-game change, and then they get a chance to go home, talk about it, figure out if the coaching side needs to make any roster adjustments, if the players need to kind of dial things in, work on any skill. There's a couple other extra courts here that, as guys have been arriving later from other flights, things like that, they're over getting reps, establishing those connections. So, you know, throughout the weekend, we're going to see teams continue to evolve. We're going to see different looks, and I think that's really what just kind of keeps me excited on the broadcasting side.
Right, absolutely. There's a lot of really high-level volleyball players here, and you got to be able to go to your bench if someone's not performing, and if you're on the bench, you got to always be ready to get your number called and get in and make an impact, right?
Absolutely, and I think that that was one of those things we saw from Tyrants yesterday. They were willing to go to their bench. They made a few amount of subs. They were one of the few teams that actually utilized the double libero system. So they started off with number 8, that was Jonathan Leone, and then I don't recall off the top of my head who their other one was, but they did use a second libero. It was 18, that's who it was. It was Jake Barrow, and so they were kind of relying on that during the second and third sets that they were playing yesterday. So it'll be interesting to see once again if they go back to that, and we'll have to keep an eye out.
Yeah, absolutely. It's always exciting to see a little bit different of styles. You know, the approaches, strategy-wise, personnel-wise, doing the double subs, doing the double libero system. You know, kind of seeing these different faces. Even though, you know, the libero side, you've got guys at opposite jerseys. It's kind of, you got to pay attention to make sure it's the same libero. If they do the double libero system, you're like, wait a minute, they changed. You know, and so you got to be on your toes. Make sure you know who's out there.
Both teams very loud, very ready to go. I'm ready to see some rosters and see what teams we're going to get here on the court. Grab this pin. You want to take the Stunners? I'll take the Tyrants. Introduce these guys.
No, I want you to do it.
All right, here we go. So on the side of the OC Stunners, on the outside, we're going to see Joey Jarvis and Matt Hilling. They're going to be starting with Nick West, number 9 in the middle today, opposite of Nick Amato. So we're going to see that Nick power duo going for it. Spencer Andrews is going to be their starting setter, with Jake Hurwitz anchoring the team down in the white jersey and Jair Santiago playing on the right. Over here for the side of the Tyrants, once again, Gianluca Grasso. Anthony Robinson getting the start today after having a solid sub-in performance during the second set yesterday. We're going to be seeing Tim Johnson once again getting the nod to start on the right side. Middle blocker number 15, that's Ryan Mon. And opposite of him is number 22, that's Austin Lovett, who we saw yesterday as well. Hands is going to be number 10, that's Gabriel Quinones. So a lot of the same faces we saw start that match off yesterday, getting right back into it. Stunners loves to work with some different serving rotations, so I'll be curious to see who they start with their first server. Looks like they might actually be on fairly standard here, but sometimes they'll start with their middles as their first servers. Different libero today, though, for the Tyrants. It's number 27. That's Riviera Jr. Yesterday, the one thing we saw, though, is I think there was a grand total of about 7 sets that went to the middle for the Tyrants. They were really, really relying on their pins.
Yeah, I mean, seven attempts for both middles in a total match.
Combined.
Combined.
It was something like that. And maybe I'm missing it, but it wasn't. I don't even know if it was double digits.
Yeah,
so,
they would need to work on that. Was it a passing thing, or was it just sort of their strategy to not do
exactly.
that?
There's Matt Hilly opening up the match exactly how he wants to. Goes that sharp 4-4. Joey Jarvis with a great pass to start that one off.
Yeah, look for Matt Hilling to make a lot of very spectacular, a lot of really high-flying, aggressive plays. He's been doing that his whole career, whether it's here or overseas, and look for him to do the same thing today as well.
Spencer Andrews with that float serve. Good high-end system pass, and there's the middle adjustment right off the bat. Love to see that. Love it getting involved, and I think Tyrants had that conversation. They knew they needed to establish that middle early.
Well, yeah, you know, every team's going to go home and watch video like you just talked about. You know, they got to create some kind of strategy if they want to, you know, make some adjustments and get ready for a new game. And obviously, being a former middle blocker myself, I love to see the middles get involved early on in the match and establish that quick attack.
I know that's one of our favorite songs is singing the praises, get those middle involved early. Off blocker defense there by Tim Johnson. Gianluca tries to put them back in system. Robinson over the top. And Hurwitz now with the platform pass to Santiago. Reset, Spencer goes back to the middle, and that's gonna be Nick West finding the corner swing in transition.
It's great to see the fire on both sides. I mean, I know it's only, 2-1 in the beginning of this match, and we just started, but we had a match earlier. You can see these guys are excited to be here, right? It's going to be an emotional match, and when you see some good volleyball, they're going to celebrate it with one another, right? Create that momentum and carry it forward.
Hilling with that jump, finds it in. All the way across to Robinson on the outside, tries to go to that low seam, and as someone that has the privilege to train against Nick West still in the gym, I can tell you, low angle is not a seam you're ever going to beat that guy against.
Right.
He drops that inside hand so well.
You got two blockers over there that are, looks like 6'8", 6'8", or even maybe 6'9" each, you know, and so that's going to be an interesting matchup there between Quinones and Santiago and West.
Good rip by Lovett once again. Hilling goes for a kick dig into the stands, not quite able to come up with it. And once again, this is an entirely different look we've seen from the Tyrants.
Well,
They've got 2 kills out of the middle.
Again, they're 2 for 2, you know, so there's, like we said, they're establishing that connection early, right? I think they've only set 1 ball to the pin so far. And so, yeah, they definitely want to establish that quick attack.
Float goes short to Jarvis. He's going to overpass. Disciplined play by the high-flying Johnson there. Goes with the 2 hands, jams that ball straight down. No need to swing when you've got open court like that.
You know, one of those things for any younger volleyball player watching right now, your first, second, and third passes that you do in a match are the most important for the entire match, right? Set that precedent. Make sure you pass the ball perfectly from pass number 1 through at the very end of the match. Don't nonchalantly just take it because it'll overpass, and that's what happens. It's a free point for the other team.
Set that tempo early.
Right.
I love that. Nick West is a very lethal server that will hit a variety of different serves. He's going to opt for the jump serve here. Goes down the line. Perfect pass. All the way out the outside. Robinson gets a reset. Quinones goes backside now to Johnson. And once again, he just flies.
Okay, so I didn't get to see the Tyrants play yesterday, right? But you said they barely set the middle. Well, obviously that's why, because they got, 17 on the backside, Johnson, who flies and hammers. So, yeah, feed him the ball. But we're seeing it now. Well-rounded offenses obviously are a smarter long-term play, too.
Good controlled swing. Hurwitz puts the stunners in system. Jair with the jam, and there's going to be a net there as they go after that little tip ball there.
Yeah, not the perfect in-system set that I think Jair was looking for. You can tell they're still kind of new, trying to figure it out a little bit. But again, defensively, the Tyrants need to be able to come up with that ball, even though someone was in the net. So,
And he is a very effective front row hitter. But I've got to say, what's almost scarier is his D-ball attack. So now that he's back row, look for him to get absolutely activated. Stunners love him as an option back there. Once again to Robinson, finds a chest dig there for Hurwitz, reset in the middle. Quinones goes back to Robinson, and now Robinson's able to find his points. That explosive first step is what I love to see. A couple bad swings to start the match there for Robinson, and just during that one, he gets 2 good ones. Heck of a dig, though, by Hurwitz. Gets behind that, uses his chest.
Yeah. So that matchup changed now. So the Abrams, the setter, is blocking against Robinson, so that could be pose some good things for them.
Yeah, Andrews is a significantly smaller block move there.
Santiago. We got a little beverage spill over here after that pursuit.
We had a little bit of a spillage going into the bench there, so I think they're trying to get that all cleaned up to make sure that no one's tracking fluid, or I don't know what spilled exactly, but either way, we're seeing some good explosiveness here. We've got a 1-point lead for the Tyrants, and at 6-5, one thing whenever I see kind of these newer teams trying to establish a little bit of a name for themselves, I love looking at their offense and seeing how they want to score the points. And right now, we've seen, Robinson get 1 or 2. We've seen 2 from Lovett in the middle. We've seen some good pressure on the backside from Johnson getting his 2 kills. So it's a very spread offense. And the only name really that I haven't mentioned there is Gianluca.
Yeah.
And that's the one that I feel most confident in.
Well, he's just now got into the front row. So he started, through the back row to begin that set. And that's why we haven't called his number quite as much yet or said his name. But, yeah, I mean, obviously you're seeing a well-rounded offense. They've gone to the middle. They've gone to the outside a couple times. Now Grosso is in the front row, and so look to see some action from him. And now that we've got that spill, kind of picked up, we're kind of back in action here.
Robinson now with the float, targets Joey Jarvis's hands, and goes right back to Jarvis, goes for that high seam, but he goes over the top, swings long, and that's the block the Tyrants are looking for.
Yeah, I thought maybe they had gotten some fingertips on that one, but none of the refs saw it, so Joey's first swing goes out of bounds long.
Robinson once again, same target, and now it's the same set option. That's going to be a net at the bottom there. As Quinones comes down, his elbow catches the net.
You like to see that repeat back to the hitter that made an error. It shows some faith between the setter and the hitter. If you make an error, then you're going to come right back and get another opportunity to kind of right that error, and that's what we saw right there, and got a little net violation as well. So
Jarvis with the off speed, but just not quite enough on it. He's definitely a dynamic server that adjusts well to his toss. So it's, I've done some breakdowns on that before, and just watching how he'll hit about 3 different serves, hybrids, top spins, floats, everything out of that same toss. And you can tell that he just hasn't quite had the ball touches that he's looking for just yet.
Yeah.
But as this tournament goes on, or this weekend goes on, I think we're going to see that continue to progress, and he'll get back into it.
Yeah, it's definitely important and almost imperative to have multiple serves in sort of your repertoire, right, or your arsenal. And so, but it's when you choose to break those different serves out, okay, based on who the passers are, based on maybe the scoreboard, based on how you're physically feeling in that moment. Are you going for an ace, or are you just trying to put it on a guy? It just kind of depends, but you have to have a good strategy and know what you're going to do before you toss the ball up and then decide midair, I'm going to try to cut this one, or roll shot it. So.
I think that's something that a lot of times it's easy to forget as a viewer, is that guys aren't always trying to just go hammer a serve. Spencer Andrews' role on this team with how many big jump servers they have, he will admittedly tell you he wants to hit a just inconsistent easy float serve, because he wants when he's back row, that means Santiago's front row. They're going to have 6'5" and taller guys everywhere, every position. So
the serve and block strategy. I mean, you have to know as a server who your blockers are in front of you and what the lineups and matchups are against the hitters.
Yep.
I mean, obviously you don't want to have just 6 bomber jump servers all the time, because you're going to end up missing too many serves.
Yep, absolutely. Once again, Nick Amato going over the top there. That's very disciplined set from Spencer Andrews, not to net. Very tight pass, but we're seeing a very, very clear development here. And as someone that was, being involved with the Ramblers yesterday, the Tyrants knew they wanted to go after Brandon Rattray on our team, make sure he was passing. Right now, Joey Jarvis is clearly the target for the Tyrants.
As it should be. I think everyone knows he's probably had a couple months off being up in Canada and doesn't quite have that platform back.
Nick Amato with a one-handed scoop there. Matt Hilling looks for the step close, gets a reset. Spencer Andrews goes right back to Matt Hilling, goes for the jam block, and Quinones is able to seal that one and shut it down early.
Yeah,
nice. Take a 2-point deficit.
Sorry, nice dig by Nick Amato. Unfortunately, Matt just didn't get a great second set. It was a tiny bit too tight for where his window was, but big swing there by Johnson, number 17 in orange. Really hitting the ball high and hard.
Quinones targets Jarvis once again, and the setback that you were talking about, and there's that same level of confidence in his hitters. He just wants to go right back.
Clearly seeing that strategy of just repeat and delete kind of thing. If your guy makes an error, he knows he's going to get the set the next one, and we've seen that now 2 times in a row on that outside hitter position. So,
I love always taking a look at defensive schemes for you passers. Joey Jarvis clearly very comfortable with his hands. Watch how shallow he goes to make sure that he's hand passing right now, not platform passing. There's going to be Gianluca going back. Spencer Andrews sticks in, gets a dig. Hilling looks to set to an out of system. Nick West, high ball in the middle of the court and let his guy swing.
Kind of a bit of an unconventional hitting option there, as Matt Hilling basically set that ball over here by the scorer's table in the broadcast booth, and Nick West was just kind of waiting, and you could see him kind of salivate a little bit. He took a swing and got the point.
Nice dig, too, by Spencer. Robinson sprays the pass a little bit, but Gianluca goes for the step close, and that one goes long.
Just out of bounds, and Gianluca's a little surprised that he missed it. But
one of the things to note, yesterday when I was looking at the stream, the light reflections in here make the white line look a little difficult to see. It's actually very easy in here, but what's a little tricky to the eyes, those blue lines just behind it make the court a little bit longer. But during that technical timeout, Victoria got a little bit of some insight. Victoria, over to you.
Thanks, Nick. Yes, out of that timeout, the Stunners were talking about how they need to keep making their serves, get on a serving run, and keep the focus on their side. Control what you can control. Tyrants, on the other hand, need to focus on their blocking strategy against this strong offense that the Stunners have. Nick, back to you.
Thanks so much. That makes total sense. It's exactly what we were talking about when you talk about serving philosophy, just letting your guys play with the right servers back there.
Yeah.
Tyrants able to battle it out during that point and force Hilling to take an off-balance swing that goes wide.
Yeah, again, a little misconnection there in transition where that set might not have been right where Matt needed it. Ball goes out of bounds. Once again, miscommunication there.
Yep, and now Johnson gets his chance, and he goes hard seam 2-2. And that's going to be a timeout called on the side of the Stunners.
Number 17 in orange can fly.
Yeah.
He can jump.
You and I were chatting a little bit this morning, kind of getting the rundown, making sure we were all on the same page. And I was like, hey, man, this guy jumps. And it's weird. He's one of those the first people I've ever seen in person that I have trouble putting to words how much he jumps.
Just to set the table a little bit, okay. Number 17 in orange, Tim Johnson, 6'4" right sider, okay. Grew up in Chicago, Illinois. He went to Grandview University, so sort of, under the radar a little bit. Not too many people have probably really seen a lot of action out of Tim Johnson on the volleyball court.
I believe it's NAIA, right? I'm pretty sure it's NAIA.
I'm going to trust you on that one and say this kid can absolutely jump out of the gym, and he's hitting the ball at a very high point.
Yeah, if I'm not mistaken, I think Grandview is part of the Chicagoland NAIA. I could be wrong, and if I am, apologies. I try to be well-versed, but that's just one of those names that, great to see such skill coming out of there. Set back to Hilling once again, able to beat that high seam. Quinones unable to come up with the dig.
So once again, Andrews just continues to feed the hitter. If he doesn't get a kill, try number 1, try number 2, try number 3, he gets it. So you're starting to see some pretty strong patterns here on the Stunner side.
And it's one of those things that just speaks to how offensive all of their hitters are, that you can do that and not worry about the block. Lovett just took off from 8 feet off the net on that swing to create a huge hitting window, giving Quinones a variety of places to locate that ball to set him.
Yeah, it was an athletic move by Levitt, kind of the float set a little bit when he's coming from, the right side of the court across the middle. But unfortunately, he's followed it up with a service error.
This feels like an entirely different Tyrants lineup from yesterday, though. Establishing the middle as well as they are, it's really making their pins continuously more effective, lets them play some scrappy defense when they need to recycle a ball. West goes after that big jump serve. Good pass by Grosso. On a thread across the net is Quinones, but Robinson turns that one just too much line.
Yeah, I think he probably wants that swing back. Obviously, you always do if you hit it out of bounds. That's sort of the general statement. But to tie it at 13-all now as we get kind of midway through this first set, Robinson is trying to find his rhythm a little bit. He's been in the back row. That was his first swing, since early on in this game. So look for some more action from him. But Nick West with a nice jump serve.
And there's a setback to Johnson, covered by Nick West. Goes back out to Jarvis, tight set, and that's going to be off the inside hand there of Johnson. I haven't said enough about him, but he's certainly having a great performance as the libero here for the Tyrants. Real Vieira, he's really been a consistent passer so far.
Yeah, we don't have any passing statistics until the match is over, but his passing is very, very strong for the Tyrants, and they're going to need his passing if they want to spread out that offense like we've been talking about from the beginning of this match.
Stunners back on top now, 14-13. So just a quick note on the Nick West serve. So he loves going from the same corner where you saw him lined up just now, but he will sometimes go to a float serve, or his 2 serves is he is the extreme angles. He'll hit straight down the line on that jump serve or go deep corner cross court. So he's got a variety of different looks that he really makes you be a disciplined passer. Johnson, I think he was trying to run a D-ball on that toss. And even for him, that one was a little bit too much.
Yeah, that one got away from him a little bit.
Yeah.
I think at least everyone's kind of laughing about it, but I think he wants that one back, needless to say.
And this is a double sub that we saw utilized yesterday, so that's going to be their second right side. Daniel Jacobs, the 2018 NAIA kill leader. So he's an offensive weapon as well, and that's going to bring a new set of hands in with Akfali. Jair Santiago definitely did not want Tim Johnson to feel alone. Johnson went under the net, and Jair went for back wall there.
I think the double sub sort of iced Jair there a little bit. It was kind of a de facto timeout, and that one helped the Tyrants.
Goes back to Jarvis. Good funnel back into the court. And now we're seeing Ryan Mon, the middle blocker, number 15, making a little bit of a cleaned up block move that we wanted to, or that the Tyrants were wanting to see in that timeout. When we kicked it over to Victoria, she was really talking about, you know, how can we make that adjustment? How can we close our seams up, get better block touches? And good adjustment right there for sure.
Yeah, you know, one thing about this matchup, Nick, is that, you know, the Stunners, they kind of have this personality on the court, sort of like maybe like the Brooklyn Nets, if I was going to compare it to like a basketball team, right? It's kind of the team that everybody wants to beat. And you can see that the Tyrants, like, they want they're relishing the opportunity to play these guys, match their energy level, match their athleticism, their hitting angles, all these kinds of things, and it's getting pretty heated early on in this match.
Also, I mean, the Stunners took a huge upset sweep yesterday. Southern Exposure showing a great rebuild. You know, what I was thinking was going to be a rebuilding weekend. They're coming out, and they are flashing a great new lineup. They took Stunners in a 3-0. They took Ramblers to they lost in 4 to the Ramblers this morning, but after only winning 1 game in November, to come back and take down the second-place team, you know, that's going to light a bit of a fire under the Stunners as well. And on the other side, the Tyrants started off with the Ramblers yesterday, and now they're playing the Stunners. So the two opponents are kind of getting the flip-flop.
Yeah, you know, and on the Stunner side, to rebound from a 3-0 loss that they didn't expect to have,
right?
You know, they got to make sure they walk the line properly, that they don't try too hard, they don't overplay, right? Stay within yourselves, do what you do best, know your roles, right, and play together as a team. We're not really seeing that quite yet. I think you got a lot of people overextending maybe their roles a little bit.
Yep, and I saw a net on that dump attempt. Nick Amato going cross back to back. Jacob dug there by Hilling. D-ball option to Santiago, sends that one long. The referee is seeing the ball through the net when Spencer went to dump that, but I personally thought I saw a hand that caught that one.
I don't know if I like your angle of view, Nick, or the up refs, but nonetheless, go for it.
Yeah, I'll trust them. During that timeout, Victoria was able to listen in. Victoria, what'd you hear?
Thanks, Nick. For these teams, they're going point to point here. It really is going to come down to the mental game for both of them. Who can keep mentally stable throughout the match? If you make a mistake, if you make an error, how do you respond? How do you respond to your teammates, and how do you respond to yourself? That's what separates the good from the great, is the mental game. And we're really going to see that in this game. Nick?
Thanks so much. I think it's great insight. We're talking about how everyone's going to hold themselves. Wow, that set was on top of the net, and we're able to see Grasso just push that one through. But that was a 50-50 ball.
That was, and Grasso, you know, he's about 6'1", maybe 6'2". Yeah. He's not the biggest outside hitter, we'll see, but he was matched up against Andrews there, so it was a little bit even. But Grasso's a jumper.
And there's Hilling going right back to that 4-4 swing.
Yeah, Hilling likes that hard angle. He had one blocker in front of him, so that was wide open for him to take full advantage of, and he did.
Now we're going to see the Nick Amato. Again, I talk about how many variety of serves all these Stunners guys have. I'll be curious if Amato hits his jump or his float right now. He opts for the float. It's going to be a high ball in the court that's going to go backside to Jacobs, and Jacobs not able to get a handle on that one. Sends it long. That was
Jacobs' first swing of the match so far since he came in on that double sub. And again, you know, you just kind of talk about the lineups and the matchups. You know, Amato puts his serve in. He gives his block and defense a chance to score a point. The hitters hit it out. So it's, you know, keep the ball in the court, Nick.
Yep, absolutely. That's why we harp on the missed serve so much. Good tempo to the outside, and there's going to be that offensive swing. Was that off the head of West? I couldn't tell.
Kind of looked like it might have ricocheted off of that, you know,
Yeah,
full head of hair that he's got over there. Might have just been the bangs, actually.
So it looks like they're going to hold this sub and not undo it. So Jacobs hits his first serve. Spencer Andrews maybe forcing that set just a bit, trying to find Nick West.
And also, you know, the setter for the Tyrants, he's a taller setter for sure.
Yep.
And you may like Jacobs serving here. You know, you can go back to the double sub if you want to, but see if you can get some points.
Yep.
And a 2-point lead, first team to 20 here for the Tyrants.
I like his serve too.
Yeah.
That's a great rip. Hilling airs it out, double block. Covered by West, steps in front of libero Jake Hurwitz, so not able to get the touch they're looking for.
Yeah.
Timeout called on the side of Stunners. That's going to be their second. And that's going to be a 3-point lead here. The Tyrants have really shown to be a well-coached team. They're practicing 4 days a week. When I got a chance to sit down with the Grosso duo, they've got guys coming from Oklahoma. They've got guys that are all over Texas, committed, bought into building this brand. They're playing 4 days a week. As far as I know, that's more than any other team in the NVA. And you can tell that these guys are bought into their system. So when they are told we need to make blocking adjustments, they make it happen now.
Yeah, no, it's always, I mean, it's always super important to make sure you have full buy-in from every single player on the squad. And if you're spending that much time together in the gym and you're working together to improve your group and your goals are clear and precise, it's easy to buy into.
Yep, absolutely. And again, I talked about it a bit yesterday, but Coach Grosso, he's been on the international circuit for a long time, coached high-level play, and he's very easy to buy into. Doug there. In transition goes to Grosso, but he hits that one into the antenna. We're really seeing a lot of great play here from Riviera, the libero on the side of Tyrants.
Yeah, that was a nice dig. I mean, that was a clean hit through, nice scoop by him.
And we're going to see that double sub undone now. I think you were dead on when you made that call. They wanted to see that serve.
No, I think it's, I mean, obviously this is a great strategy, you know, and Coach Grosso being Brazilian, this sort of originated in Brazil probably, you know, about a decade ago. And they started, their national team started to do this double sub.
Okay.
And it's really become kind of a normal thing to see now. And it's a great strategy. Continue to have 3 hitters through the front row.
Johnson looks for the step close, sends it deep. Now we're going to Hilling once again, goes down the line, and that's a headshot down the line, finds Quinones. I believe there's a bit of a mismatch there. We keep talking about those height mismatches. Having Grosso front row against Hilling, that's a bit of a height difference in terms of point of contact.
In that rotation, if we could see the replay, we saw that Johnson was blocking on the left and Grosso on the right, which means he's blocking against Matt Hilling, which might not be the best matchup for the Tyrants. And we see full advantage why as Hilling's able to get a headshot off of
Quinones, the setter there.
Head, so it's all right. Just making sure he's awake now. You know, keep going.
You know, it's not the 9 a.m. match, but we're still before noon.
Yeah. Well, technically.
Oh, do we pass it?
Yeah.
Are we right at 12:01?
27 seconds late on that one, Nick.
Making me a liar.
I do like the rebound by the Stunners there. You know, they've got to create some kind of sense of urgency. They took that timeout a couple points back. They're only down by 1 right now, but we're at the end of this first set. Okay, it's 21-20, so it's important time.
We'll see Spencer Andrews here now hitting that float. It's going to be a good pass, going right back to Grosso to try and get another one, but it's recycled. Quinones now on the bick to Robinson. Hurwitz finds a dig. Hilling sends it outside. Jair Santiago with a big swing. Robinson tracks it down out of the back. Bump set to Johnson. Oh, sorry, Tim. Reset. Robinson once again with a dig. Sent over 4 contacts. That was a heck of a rally, but I'm curious what conversations were being had just a moment ago in that timeout. Victoria, what'd you hear?
Thanks, Nick. From the perspective of the Tyrants, blocking Matt Hilling on the outside, we know he can crush angles. So the right side needs to go head up on the block on Matt Hilling and really dive his left hand into the angle, taking that away from Matt. We know Matt can swing line, as we just saw. So it's about taking space, getting head up on him, diving your left hand in, and knowing that the right back defender needs to sit on that line just in case he turns the ball back to the line. Nick?
Absolutely. They know what they're talking about, trying to coach that those blocking moves. And there we see Austin Levitt contributing. I believe it's his 4th or 5th kill of the set.
Yep, get him involved early and late. It's nice to see.
Great short serve by Grosso. Hilling goes down the line once again, and he's showing that he can swing line on both sides of the court. Really trying to take control of this one as we are tied in the final leg here at 22 all.
That good swing by Matt right there, to go down the line on the right side. Clearly, Andrews is seeing the matchups and trying to expose, who he wants to hit against what blockers.
Hilling with a jump serve. In system, love it, tips over the top. That's gonna be a tight pass that Jarvis is able to get a swipe off the outside hand there of that was Tim Johnson that was front row.
Yeah, that was a nice heads-up play there by Jarvis to kind of joust and swipe off of Johnson. Pretty high-level blocking joust there, but Jarvis pulls away with the win on that one.
That's one of those fun ones that I wish you had a simulator that you could see the variety of options, where Johnson pulls the right hand and you see Jarvis just throw it into the wall. See the different ways.
It's one of those things that you really have a hard time training to do.
Yeah.
It's just something that you learn to do over time. And like the swipe or the pullback last minute, and, you bait him into going over or something like that.
It's really the cheeky plays that high-level players every now and then just mess around with, and it's gonna be a painful lesson to learn a couple times when you're learning how not to do it.
Right.
But it works out. And
especially for those players out there that have a pretty high volleyball IQ, right? They've been in situations similar, and they remember, they store it for the next time, and that was one of those plays right there for sure.
And Stunners needed that right now. Lighten the mood just a little bit. They're up 1 point, gets the guys kind of laughing, gets them a timeout now that they get a chance to catch their breath, come back, let Hilling hit another jump serve.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see how they respond to it, though. I feel like the Stunners are a bit of an emotional roller coaster sometimes.
Hilling forces the overpass, and Jarvis finishes him off. Right there, that's a little outside to outside connection for the Stunners.
All started with the serve from Matt, creates the overpass, opportunity for the Stunners to score an easy point. And we've got set point now, number 1 for the Stunners.
Another big serve. Grosso airs it out in the middle of the court, backside to Johnson. Johnson goes OT down the line. Good defensive read there. Stunners had 2 guys, but still just such an offensive threat, not able to find that dig.
Yeah, that's a high hit right there.
Oh, yeah.
Coming from a very high point, it's going to be pretty challenging to block that ball.
Grosso doing a great job battling with that serve as well and get a nice pass in the middle of the court so they can run some offense. Lovett sends it deep with a float. Tight ball that's going to be jousted. Johnson resets. That's going to be over. Well, I guess it's not going to be over, and that's going to be a point for Joey Jarvis.
Oh, it's over, Nick. That game is over.
Yeah, there you go.
Apparently, the up ref saw that there was a little bit of a fraction of that ball on top of the tape. It wasn't a reach over by Jarvis, and Stunners steal that game.
Yeah. I mean, at one point there, we were, I believe that was a Tyrants lead at 21-18.
Yep.
And they were able to dial that one back in. And I think the final score there is either 25-20. Is it 25-22? 23? Yeah, there we go. 25-23. So the Stunners able to outscore 7-2 at the end of that game.
Those late game runs, spending a lot of time in the gym, you see some of the drills that coaches can come up with. One of my favorites was always a 20-21 game to 25.
Yeah.
The score is 20-21. And you're receiving at 20, so the team with 21 is serving, right? The first one to 25 or win by 2, and it really sums up what we just saw.
Yeah.
The very most important part of the game is at the very end, right? And you got to be able to close those games out. That's what the Stunners just did right there.
Absolutely, and for anyone that didn't get a chance to see in November what the NVA was doing, I think that's really what embodied what the top teams in the league do so well. When you look at the Stunners and the Stingers, their rosters are loaded with guys that have all been there before. You look at the Stingers, and we saw it last night, they were having a rough night serving in game 1, and every single game, they just kept cleaning up the next thing and the next thing. And when you've got several guys from national teams all over the world and just everyone playing from that BYU system, they start to lock it down. You get into the late part of this match, we see the Stunners with guys that have played in systems all over the world. They've been in high-pressure situations, and they come back here. They know who's going to get them through those points. And you see Joey Jarvis and Matt Hilling really step up there for the Stunners at the end of that set and make it happen.
Yeah, and again, it also falls back to familiarity with playing with one another on the team, right? You have a new team together. You don't really know how people are going to react. Sometimes you might have some language, troubles, foreign languages and English and whatever. But with the Stunners, other than a couple new people, new faces with Santiago and Andrews, they're figuring it out. They know how to play with one another. And so you saw sort of, a little ebb and flow up and down with how the Stunners, acted on the court, how they responded, how they, got on each other's back and then created that emotional win, which kind of pulled them through the finish line in that first set.
Absolutely. Now, I think the most concerning part, if you're looking at the side of the Tyrants after that loss, is the fact that they kind of blew that lead that we were talking about. Being up 3 that late in the game usually feels like a pretty good spot to be in. If you're over on that in that timeout, what's your focus look like right now? What are you trying to get your teammates or your players to be doing?
Yeah, for the Tyrants, I don't think they really need to change anything. They started out great. The only thing that they really need to do is maybe they need to match the emotion a little bit from the Stunners. And if they start to get fired up, not to bring fake emotion, but to create some kind of sense of urgency by how you're playing, right? You're covering a hitter, or you're chasing down a ball that no one thinks you can get, make the big play, and then bring everybody back together and celebrate that success.
One of those things that I think is something that's not talked about a lot, because it's not something that usually happens as much as it is right now, but there's a lot of tight 50-50 balls on the net that I think are kind of going the way of the Stunners almost every time right now. And, if we can see a little bit more discipline, grabbing the ball, kind of bringing it back into the court, or at least just resetting it and not, a terminal loss for the Tyrants, I think that'll help get them 1 or 2 more rallies that might kind of bring some more points back to their side as well.
Yeah, I think in regards to that, you just see a little bit more maybe physicality from the Stunners side versus the Tyrants. Not that they're not physical or athletic, because everybody here is in the NBA, right? So it's just maybe a little bit of size and experience and kind of, hand placement where you're trying to put the ball, and who's going to win those, those tight joust kind of situations.
Yeah, and I think to no surprise here, we're not seeing any adjustments to either team's lineups. Keeping everyone the exact same. And we'll see, so the Tyrants, I believe, or no, the Stunners are going to be the first servers. During that timeout, though, we're talking about what we would think the players and guys should be talking about. Victoria, what did you hear them actually talking about?
So my takeaway from what I've seen during this game is that the Tyrants still have a chance to win this set and the match. If the Tyrants continue to dig balls and focus in on their defense, they can get in the heads of the Stunners. The Stunners ride a lot on emotions. Going back to, are you high-fiving your teammates or are you walking away? What kind of camaraderie are you having on the court? Positive energy or negative? And that's what we're going to see during this match. Tyrants defense and the Stunners energy. Nick.
Yeah, it's a great point. And, it's definitely it's always interesting to see also what teams' expectations of each other are. And that's where you see conflict, is when reality doesn't match expectations. So keep track of that one here as a big block touch. Stunners reset. Jair Santiago with a huge swing. Yesterday he was able to get that one to work, but 2-2 does not work here. And, I have to say it because we see it right away. Victoria points out the emotion. Matt Hilling a little slow to come back to the team. Joey Jarvis runs over, grabs him by the hand, and pulls him into the team. He wants to make sure that Hilling is bought in, bringing it in with the team.
Yeah, the dynamics of teams are always different, but again, everyone's on the same page, and we got to work towards, trying to figure out how to win the match.
There was a net called. I did not see, but I physically just can't see it. But there was a net on that play. That was just kind of an abrupt end I wasn't expecting.
Yeah, net violation on somebody from the Tyrants for sure.
Hilling with that same pressure. Grasso sets to the outside, high ball to Johnson. Johnson goes over the top. Hurwitz digs a 50-50 ball, and there's Johnson looking for that small adjustment.
Yeah, the guy can really fly. I'm still a little bit trying to figure out how to really describe it for the people at home, but, that guy can fly. And
I feel like, a bit of a broken record here saying he can really jump, but, guys, he can really jump.
Yeah, it's crazy how high Tim Johnson can jump right now. Like I said, I'm a little at a loss for words as well.
was a great out-of-system set there by Grosso as well. Not quite able to find the serve he's wanting as a follow-up, though.
There hasn't been a lot of missed serves yet, you know, and I don't necessarily dislike that missed serve, but, you know, when you're down 1-0, you can't just go back and blast the serve into the net, right? You got to create a service run. Put the first one in. Put some pressure on the other team. Don't just give them a free point, right? And then allow your serve to work into it as well, you know? Get your serve into a rhythm.
And one of those things you talk about when you talk about serving mentality, I think is a follow-up point too. You know, so many coaches would rather have their guys missing over the net, like long out of the back of the court, because there's at least an opportunity for a touch, someone to make the decision, as opposed to in the net, you just got to stand there and take your free point. And that's 3 serves in the net in the row. And I think maybe that's just on us. Maybe we're doing the broadcaster
maybe we're
curse.
jinxing it. Yeah, we're jinxing it. But we talked about it in the first match this morning too. You know, there's a fine line between risk and reward. You know, how many service errors compared to how many aces, the ratios involved, who you're trying to put your serve on, right? There's a lot of factors going on there. How you physically feel, you know, where your toss is, the contact between your hand and the ball.
Yep.
I mean, it's a pretty complex skill to develop. And it's easy to criticize from the sideline, Nick.
Always. Nice steer by Santiago, and it's going to be free ball by Jarvis. Reset, and there's the big route. Grosso goes up and hammers that ball. Hard angle.
I think that's a great play for them to have Grosso flying out of the back row as often as they can because of his size in the front row against the bigger block of the Matadors. He's going to be more effective out of the back row, right, than he would in the front, and it keeps him involved in the offense. He hasn't gotten a lot of sets yet, but flying out of the back row like that, the percentages are going to be pretty high in his favor.
Absolutely. Hilling with the pass, going out to Jarvis. And we are seeing Ryan Mon really determined to influence this game. Just a nice controlled pass to set up the offense on that last play. On this one, gets all the way out to the pin, sets the block. And
6'6", he's listed on the roster, but he looks a little bit taller than that,
yeah,
so it was a nice block by him.
And there's Jair Santiago using that hammer to really go for those high hands. Just use all of his size.
Yeah, Jair's a big guy. You know, he's 6'8", like we said earlier. He's got some weight behind that shoulder. He's strong from the inline, strong from the back row for sure. Good range, and look for him to make an impact, obviously, throughout this match as well.
Jarvis floats deep. Grosso barely able to get his platform on that. Johnson swings right back at Santiago. And we're just seeing a lot of big swings and teams forced to play some defense.
You know, Johnson doesn't have a half jump, I don't think. It's
Nope.
just all the jump all the time,
Yeah.
right? And I think it's throwing off the defender's views of the angles from where the ball's coming from.
Yeah. Jarvis with the hand pass there, goes straight back to Amato, gets a block touch, reset. Quinones on the run, goes to Johnson once again, and Johnson now, instead of going to that angle swing, changes it up a little bit and goes to the outside and takes the outside hand of Hilling for a tool.
Yeah, you know, Amato didn't get that kill on the first option quick, which was good to see. We haven't said a lot of his name yet, you know, throughout this match, but Hilling's got to get that outside hand straight over the net to get that ball back onto the Tyrant side.
Quick set to the outside, and there's the hard angle. A dig move there, and Spencer Andrews swings at the overpass, sends that one long. Jarvis looking for a net, but that's just not going to happen. Ball is out, and Tyrants are going to say thank you, and that's a technical timeout at 8-4.
You know, once again, Nick, kind of to go on about what we've been talking about, you know, as far as emotions on the court, right? You see it right there from the Stunners. You know, you see a hitting error, which might not have been the best choice by Andrews. It was an overpass. He was trying to, you know, just in the rally really fast. He hits it out of bounds, and you kind of see the guys kind of split a fraction apart to go to different areas, right? I don't really like to see that. I like to see what the Tyrants are doing. They're coming together. They're celebrating successes. If there's an error, you've got 5 guys coming over to you saying, don't worry about it, get the next one, kind of thing like that, you know. Fortunately for the Stunners, you know, this technical timeout is helpful. And you see, you know, Coach Hilling over there kind of directing the troops a little bit.
Yeah.
But, you know, again, this is a continuing story as the emotional capabilities of both teams throughout this match.
Yeah, and I want to pivot really quick. I think a lot of people, when I see, sometimes it's shorter players that want to get involved with the sport, everyone just talks about, oh, you're going to be a libero, you're going to be a libero. And I think there's sometimes a negative connotation created around that. And right now, I really want to highlight what we're seeing on the sides of the Tyrants, because Real Vieira has had about 3 digs that he has no business touching. He's able to extend rallies, even though that goes for an overpass. He creates an opportunity for them to score the point. Obviously, he's been a rock and serve receive. And for most liberos in men's volleyball, that's what coaches want to see. But every dig beyond that is an opportunity for your team to score points. He's doing a great job, and we've got to see where that continues.
Yeah, and it's great to see it too. I mean, as a libero, you're sort of, you're the back row quarterback. You're in charge of all that stuff. Obviously, serve receive is huge. You have to pass nails the whole time, right? Offense or defensively speaking, if you scoop, your opponent's just absolute best heat that they can bring, and you just say what else, and your whole team gets fired up by that. I mean, that's as good as a point, as far as statistics are concerned.
And there it is once again. We're seeing the Tyrants scrap for it. Robinson with a huge dig backside to Santiago, and he's able to find that one. But again, just to kind of go on our riff right now to talk about defense and the defensive impacts. As a hitter, I always felt one of the most important things is when I took my swing and I'm going to get a kill, I want the point to end. I don't want it to be ricocheted off of 3 people. I want to find court, find a hand, and end it on my terms, not because they couldn't quite barely get it back over. And when you've got great defense that we're seeing right now on the side of the Tyrants, that's the feeling for it.
It's very deflating, right?
Good cover on that or on that dump by Jarvis. And there's going to be a net infraction there on the side of the Tyrants. Good high point of contact by Nick West going over the top of the block.
Stunners need to find some kind of sense of urgency, go on a little bit of a run. They got to match the celebration level that the Tyrants are bringing. And the Stunners, they haven't created or manufactured multiple points, and that's a great way to start. Amato with his jump float serve catches the libero for an ace.
And Nick Amato, if you ever watch his body language, he is just full of energy. He's a great guy to have on the court for that, especially. And, he gets in there, gets the boys riled up a little bit.
Yeah, he's been like that for a long time, ever since probably before his days at Long Beach State, which is where I met him at first. And he was like that through that program as well. And you can see it bringing that personality to the Stunners, too.
Going to send that float long, but able to get an ace. So if he trades an ace for an error, that's a worthwhile service run, and you're going to take that one for sure. He goes +1.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, Nick. That's the ratio that a coach likes to see, or a team likes to feel at least. Well, 1 to 2, or 1 to 1, or 1 to 2 is probably within that acceptable kind of range.
Oh my goodness, Matt Hilling, for the 3rd time this set, goes up and finds that sharp angle 4-4 swing.
Well, Coach Grasso's got to pull his middle blockers to the side and tell them that Matt Hilling wants to hit the sharp angle, right? And you don't have to go high to block him. You got to go block low and just get your hands over the net, penetrate, and take away the angles.
Andrews finds Robinson's hands, quick set to the outside. And there goes Grasso, determined to answer back. Victoria, what do you think about that one?
I think they're going back and forth here in this game, Nick. Both outsides are cranking it hard angle, really teeing off on the tee there. Both of the right sides need to bring their block in, force these outsides to hit line. Yes, line is in their wheelhouse, but their bread and butter is hard cross. They need to make an adjustment on both sides. Nick.
And, we've been talking about this hard angle. It couldn't be more right, but now we're seeing the versatility. That goes Matt Hilling with, I think he had a closed fist, swings for about a 10 to 12 foot line, chop swing there, and hammers that one down. They are trading blows here. Robinson with a tight pass. Quinones tries to find the middle, but able to be bailed out. Hilling airs one out, step close from Jarvis, rolls it deep. Quinones resets to the backside, and Grasso goes for that big swing, but Nick West is there to stop that conversation.
It's a nice, well-formed block by West and Jarvis. Okay, we saw it earlier in the match as well. I'm sure we'll see it again throughout the match. Blocking against Grasso, 6'2", going up against 6'7", 6'8 guys, right? That was a really well-formed block by Nick to get his hands back into the angle, kind of like what Victoria was saying a couple minutes ago, and really take away those hitting angles from the outside hitters.
Hilling had a lot of pressure generated during his last serving run. See if he can do that now. Grasso once again able to handle it, and they look for that setback. He's able to hang in the air, goes that high line seam just outside of Jarvis's hand, and Jake Hurwitz not quite able to bring that one back into the court.
Yeah, Hurwitz just caught maybe a touch into the court when he should have been maybe a little bit closer to the sideline to possibly dig that ball.
Back set Santiago, and he takes his turn teeing off down the line. There is certainly no lack of big swings from either team right now.
We're seeing haymaker after haymaker,
Yep.
Nick, right now, and it's only midway through the second set, but, you know, these guys they're swinging hard, okay? It's good to see. It's exciting volleyball for sure, and it's keeping it at a pretty high level. So.
Yep. I think it's impressive how much control we're seeing, too, with these swings. We're not seeing errors being made right now. Everyone's just finding court, finding hands.
Yep.
West of the big serve, goes back to Johnson, and Johnson takes a turn, but this time he's going to put that one outside the antenna. And I think we just have that effect. I sit there and talk about not making the errors, and there it is, rearing its ugly head.
It's all right. Tim will never know you said it.
And Tim, if you watch this back later, apologies. That one's on me, buddy. Victoria, what do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, it just goes to show that if you force these hitters to hit line, they're going to make errors. And that is what we just saw right now. You need to go head up on the block, press low and inside with your left hand, make these hitters hit line, and good things will happen. Nick?
Absolutely. Now, Matt, I always rely on you as a guy who has a way with words and is our blocking guru. When we hear Victoria talking about head up, can you break that down a little bit more?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, as a blocker, you want to have your head up and watching the hitter hit the ball. A lot of blockers have the tendency to drop their head down, maybe be afraid to get hit in the head by the attacker, but you keep your head up, which means your hands are going to stay over the net, and that is what Victoria is referring to. So keep your head up and your hands over and line up properly so you can cut the hitter's angles off.
Now we see a huge rally midway here. Santiago goes back for a big swing and finishes that one off. That's one of the biggest rallies we've seen of the day, and that's going to force a timeout called from the Tyrants as the Stunners are really getting back into form here. We're seeing Spencer Andrews clean that up just a tad, getting a good variety of sets going to all of his hitters, firing on all cylinders. And Santiago is now finding a way to get very effective and very involved in this offense.
Yeah, you're seeing a prime example of the emotional roller coaster that is the OC Stunners, right? They, you know, if it's not going their way, they all get kind of fractional, but when everything's going their way, they're all stoked and they're all cheering for each other, high-fiving, you know, hugging, chest pumping, all the things, right? So, you know, that's just how the sport goes. It's a lot of momentum going back and forth. It's a lot of, you know, runs of points, okay? And right now with the Stunners getting that 2-point run, you know, they now have that 2-point cushion as well. So, you know, these games there's a lot of parity here, right? These games are all going to be really even. And every point, you got to put a premium on long rallies like that, because that can be a little bit of a backbreaker for the other team when you win those longer rallies.
It's kind of interesting to, if you go back to the Tyrants that we saw in the November event, an entirely different roster that had kind of an eerily similar play style with a little bit of the undersize and the way that they established themselves getting some long rallies.
Yeah.
Maybe it's just a thing with the name.
A bit of the underdog that's always going to play hard no matter what the scoreboard says.
Yeah, and now we're going to see Johnson goes to jam that one. And, you know, we talked about in what world when you try to maybe pull the block or try those cheeky things. Last time we saw those exact same two players where Jarvis wiped it off the hands of Johnson.
Yeah.
Now it goes back the other way. We see that cheeky block pull because Joey Jarvis thinks he's about to get wiped.
It's a seesaw battle back and forth, Nick. It's going to be like that for the whole match, I guarantee it.
Jarvis, the good pass. Nick Amato goes up, and that's a one-on-one commit block from Ryan Mon, who shuts that one down right away. And coming out of the timeout, Tyrants answer back the energy of the Stunners to tie this up at 14 apiece.
Yeah, big stuff down there by Ryan Mon. I mean, obviously he knows Nick Amato's tendencies is to go wrist away from that approach line, and that's what he got.
High ball laid up to Jarvis. Jarvis goes for the roll shot, but that is another net. The Tyrants right now are sometimes just feeling like they've got to do a little too much on those blocking moves. They're going high, and they're catching the net on the way up.
Yeah, unfortunately, a little bit of their own worst enemy right there in that situation. And you try so hard, you know, but I think that was Tim's jersey probably netting along the top of the net there.
He just tucked his jersey in.
Yeah. So obviously it's an unfortunate net because that ball is going to get picked up and potentially turn for a real point.
Got a little wipe down coming here, so a little natural game pause. The state of the game is definitely one that's interesting. Seeing, you know, Stunners rebounding, finding their way back on top. They're with only a 1-point lead, but they've got, you know, one set under their belt. That always makes that conversation a little bit easier when you're trying to get the guys kind of heading back in the same direction. When you're up one set, it's a nice spot to be in. So
yeah, I mean, it's always easier to be playing with the lead when it comes to the set score, you know, the actual game scores. These games go back and forth so much, it's kind of expected, you know. As long as it's within 2 to 3 or 4 points, you know you will always have a chance to come back and win.
yeah, and free ball comes in, back in system for the Tyrants. They look for Grasso on the bick. Hurwitz finds his second dig of the rally, but that one's just going to go long. We see a great hustle effort as Hilling tracks that ball down all the way to the back line. Tyrants making sure that they are all the way in system.
Yeah, it's nice to see Hurwitz get in the right spot because Gianluca is going to be going on that that Bick attack in transition. We've seen it a couple times now, and they're going to start relying on that a little bit more to get him involved while he's in the back row.
And now we see that double sub once again. And Nick Amato answers back. No block touch to be seen there.
That was a strong response by Nick Amato. Unfortunately for the Tyrants, the blocker jumped on Andrews' set, which then left Amato, you know, to hit with nobody up. And any good middle blocker is going to take full advantage of that, and that's what Nick did for sure.
Victoria, what's your take on all that going on?
Thanks, Nick. Nick Amato is dominant in the middle, and they need to get him going a lot more. The Stunners can do more of spreading their offense. They're going to their pins quite a bit. Maybe that has to do with their serve, receive, and ball control. That being said, when you can set the middle, especially, I mean, both Nicks in the middle, they need to be present, and that is how they're going to score and get on runs versus the Tyrants defense. Nick.
Absolutely, and you know, we're seeing the more that when the Stunners are going to the pins, there may be less, or there might be more opportunity for the Tyrants to extend that rally, find a dig. But when their middles are getting involved, that point's ending pretty quick.
Yeah, if you're the Tyrants, you don't want to see the Stunners' middles get hot,
yeah,
right? Because then you're just going to have that much more to deal with offensively and then block and defense on your side when you've got Nick West and Nick Amato, you know, strong middle blockers, maybe two of the strongest middle blockers in the league. You know, across the net from you.
Yep. Jarvis starts it off with a float serve. Tyrants in system to the outside, and that's Jacobs coming up off the bench. Goes OT the one-on-one. No dig to be had there by Jarvis. I love seeing guys that are ready to go off the bench and know, you know, Jacobs clearly knows what his role is when that double sub happens.
Yeah, we talked about it earlier. You got to be ready when your number's called, and he was that time.
And that one's going to go long. But, you know, once again, Tyrants are able to exhale with a little bit of comfort there, because if Amato gets that back-to-back kills, that goes from heating up to hot real quick.
Yeah, yeah. You know, Tyrants getting that point back gives them a 1-point cushion again.
Jarvis, the comfortable hand pass, a little bit off the set, but there we see it once again. Huge net there by number 16, Daniel Jacobs.
Not sure what happened over there. I think Grasso got an elbow to the head or something maybe. I'm not too sure what happened, but.
Yep, just confirmed Brian Mon, I think, caught him with an elbow.
I mean, you should never hit your own teammate, especially during a play.
That's one of those, you know, the higher level you get to, that's one of those tough things. You get next to a middle blocker that's 6'9". His elbow, even if you're 6'3" or 6'4", is not at a friendly place when you're coming down. So
yeah, I've taken a couple of elbows too. I remember one guy actually breaking an orbital bone, you know, from somebody. And that's obviously not something you want to hear anybody have to go through, especially a volleyball player during a practice. He took an elbow right into the orbital bone, and surgery was required, and all the things. And that's a serious thing to have to go through.
And that's why it's so important when we talk about these blocking adjustments too. It's really, really interesting to me every time you watch the middle blockers' footwork, how they'll work behind their other players, sometimes their feet, to make sure that they're moving at the same speed. Sometimes you'll see those high-level moves require a middle to land behind their other players as well so that they're not crashing into them. Because like you said, you know, if you've got a 6'9" guy landing on a 6'1" guy, there's one winner always.
You're right. You're right, Nick.
Amato now at the float. Once again, great pass from Real Vieira, and goes to the outside, and Grasso might have taken one to the head, but now he answers back.
Well, give credit to the setter for the Tyrants right now. He saw the matchup of Andrews against Grasso, so he knew who was going to block again, and that's the time when you want Grasso to hit, is against the 6-foot blocker for the Stunners.
Mon with the deep float, catches Hurwitz high. D-ball is the only option. Santiago not afraid of that one, though, and crushes it down the line, taking advantage of a back row middle blocker.
Yeah, big swing down the line by Santiago. I would have liked to have seen 3 blockers for the Tyrants. They had time to get over there so that the wing blocker can really seal the line and get right next to the antenna. They went with 2 blockers, and Jair took advantage of it.
Spencer Andrews, float serve. Daniel Jacobs once again going for that big swing and gets the touch that he wants.
Yeah, nice hitting line there off the hands of Matt Hilling. Once again, Matt's left hand has got to be squared up and reaching back to the middle of the court and not be a target for that hitter to hit off of.
Jacobs hammers that serve, going to get the overpass, and that's going to be a back row. That ball is 50-50, so it's a back row attack there from Spencer Andrews. That's a good call from my angle.
Yeah, I think that's the right call as well. I sort of saw that develop. You know, if Andrews had pulled his hands down below the top of the net, he might have, might have been able to score the point. But nice call by the team in blue there.
And a heads-up play by Grasso to know where the back row setter is. Jacobs with the same pressure. Hilling airs it out in the middle of the court. Santiago now goes into 2. Nice dig there by Real Vieira. Jacobs goes to back row Robinson, chopped out wide.
Yeah, not the best transitional swing right there from Robinson,
yeah.
but unfortunately for the Tyrants, that one just goes out of bounds wide, and we'll see the double sub again. And again, now the Stunners just down by 1 here as we get close to the end of set 2.
Matt Hilling, once again, he's had a hot serving hand this match so far. And there he goes and answers the ace.
That time you get the credit for the ace and not the service error like usual, but he got a little help from the net, right? A little tickler that kind of maybe changed the trajectories a little bit there and kind of threw Robinson off for the ace.
Ties him up at 20 too. 20 as well. But once again, we talk about, you know, if you're able to get that ace, even when you're down, I'm going to take the ace for the error. I'm still more than happy with the position that Stunners is in to know that those guys can battle out. You know, able to close out that 2 to 3 point gap. They're in a better spot than when the serving run started. Hurwitz with the perfect pass. Jair Santiago able to get a big rip, but it's covered now on Tyrants. They're going to send it over. Hilling with the pass, back set to Santiago, misses that one line for the first time. He's not been able to find that line swing. He's been so good on that, but just didn't quite find it there.
Not too sure why he felt like he had to go back to Santiago right there. It was a little bit of a stack kind of situation. I would have liked to have seen him gone to Jarvis on the left, but this serve lets him off the hook for sure. That's a big miss right there.
Once again, though, we talk in terms of when you have to serve as tough as these guys do right now to try and get some people out of system. Grasso able to get one real one while he's back there, so, you know, creates that 1 point space. That's a big, big part of this game.
Yeah, you know, you got to be able to score those real points when you get the opportunity to. That's why the digs and the transitions become magnified as the match goes on and later in the game.
There's that big serve down the line from West. Robinson swings deep, gets the overpass, and does not see the overpass come back that time. Hilling not quite able to come up with it after Robinson terminates that point.
Yeah, unfortunately for Nick West, that dig just went back over the net right in Robinson's wheelhouse to get a nice swing and a good attempt at the overpass for a point.
You always talk about getting that one back in there. He did. Great pass from Hilling outside to Jarvis. Goes down the line, not able to find that one. We're seeing a lot of lead changes going on here, and almost the exact same thing that happened last game is now flip positions.
Yeah.
Stunners coming into the late game with a 2-point lead, and Tyrants take it back, and now they're holding on to it.
You know, it really doesn't matter what happened before the 20th point. It really only matters what happens between point 21 and 25.
Yep.
Right? And we're seeing the Tyrants make sure that they don't allow the Stunners to come back again late in game 2 like they did in game 1, right? And they're finishing off this second set right now.
And you know, one thing I've been wanting to talk about a little bit with the double sub we see on the Tyrants, and I think is so interesting. You talked about the size with the second setter coming in with Akfali. It's so interesting to see him be when he comes in back row, it makes them more willing to, like we saw, Daniel Jacobs has a phenomenal serve. So putting him front row for that one rotation, he's a very large setter, so there's no concern to hold that. It makes their double sub a little more interesting to me too.
Yeah, it's definitely a great pair to pull off that double sub situation for, and you know that's something that Coach Grasso thought about.
And there's the timeout paying off for the side of the OC Stunners.
Yeah, you can give player coach either Emery or Hilling credit for that one for sure.
Yep.
And you'll see a blocking sub now for the Stunners as well. So good timing here, a little bit of strategy. But Santiago should realize that there is a blocking sub and he has to put this serve in the court.
Yeah, so now if I'm not mistaken and knowing what's going to happen, Hilling will have hands right now playing right back defense. I think we're going to see Jair Santiago shift into middle back, and Hilling is going to take over hands. Well, blocking sub all you want. When you got a guy that hits a serve like that, no concern. That's a huge swing and an ace down the line there for Jair Santiago. Talk about clutch. Comes out, hammers that ace.
Yeah, sorry, Nick. I was just trying to figure out what was happening there. But, yeah, big serve by Jair right there. Couldn't have come at a better time. Coach Grasso realizes that you don't get to take your unused timeouts with you in the next set, so he calls a timeout. He's going to try and ice Jair a little bit here and create some kind of a game plan, maybe go with 4 passers if necessary, and work on getting a better side out here.
I'm curious if we're going to see this, if we see this rally, I'm curious to see what option we see Matt Hilling go for offensively. So he's a guy that has, in the practice gym, has a lot of experience setting. So this is stuff that they actually do practice. As again, I'm one of the guys that gets to train against them. And this is definitely nothing new. This is things that they do work on. So that's where I was pretty familiar with what was going on. But I'm curious to see what happens in game when it goes live.
Oh.
And there's back-to-back aces.
Back-to-back aces out of the timeout. That's nice to see. Good response by Jair to not get iced from the timeout. That one goes right off of Grasso's arms as he didn't get his body behind it. Great seam serve from Jair between Grasso and the libero for the Tyrants.
So now is he just going to put the team on his back and end this one on his own terms?
I don't know. We'll see.
Maybe. Out of system now, Robinson going to chip it live. Now we're going to see Hilling in action. Goes to the outside to Jarvis. Tip over the top. Grasso finds the dig. Quinones throws it back to Johnson. No dig on the side of Jair Santiago, but Stunners definitely gets what they want out of that rotation. They were down 24-21, find the side out, 2 aces, and that gives them a little bit of breathing room here. Now they've got to just battle point for point.
Yeah, that was a nice response, but they're still down. It's still set point to the Tyrants, right? The Stunners don't want to even this series. They want to, try to win this set if they can, but they've got a side out right here now.
Johnson float serves, gets an overpass, reset by Robinson. Quinones throws it back for Johnson to get a ball, but he goes tip over the top. Hurwitz doesn't see it. No off block or help there, and that one's going to fall.
And it's all for nothing, Nick. Those 2 aces, unfortunately. You've got to be able to play a disciplined defense, and that was a bit of a campfire setup, like we always say, when the tip comes right over the top of the net. You got to have 2 or 3 guys on the ground for that. We had one guy watching it, a couple guys, not laying out for their teammates there.
Absolutely, but I got to say, I'm not sure I'm on the same page with you that it's all for nothing. Maybe it is on the scoreboard, but as a team that we're challenging and talking so much about the emotional roller coaster, for guys to still be able, without a coach, to problem solve through that on the court and find a little bit of that late game run, that helps get some momentum coming, your way. So as you come into this third set, you're not down on a 4, 5, 6 point loss. That puts them in a little bit of a better mental state. Find a way, you're going to battle back. Victoria, what do you think about that?
Thanks, Nick. As I stated at the beginning of that set, defense is how the Tyrants are going to win. Defense is not only skill, but it is heart. Are you going after every ball? Are you hustling? And the Tyrants are, and that is how they won that set. The Stunners a little bit back on their heels, even though they did have those 2 aces. Defense wins championships at the end of the day. So can the Tyrants continue to stay in the heads of the Stunners here? We'll find out. Nick?
Absolutely, and I think when we talk a little bit about that defensive, strategy and style of playing, what that also really forces in turn is that forces your outsides to be disciplined. And we're seeing that from both Robinson and Grasso right now, because they're going to be getting a lot of sets that they have to better the ball. They might get a bad set, out of system, 15 feet off, outside the court, whatever it is, but they need to get an aggressive swing that guarantees that they're not about to have a point just shoved right back down their throat.
Yeah, and I think one thing that we can talk about too is the consistency that the Tyrants are playing at. You're seeing that consistency, because they're training so much together, they're consistently providing, a level playing field for themselves. They're relying on each other. You're not seeing these big emotional swings or fighting for 2 points and then giving up 3 points like you see from the Stunners, right? Give credit to the coaching staff for that one as well, right? But again, being level-headed, not allowing the emotions to kind of take you over or take over how you're playing, and then obviously going forward throughout this match.
Yeah, and one thing I'm always dialed in, as we see the NVA grow, one of my challenges kind of like to the league when we were back in November, and obviously so many teams hadn't practiced with COVID going on, and that we're kind of getting over that hump now. But one of the things we saw was so many teams not able to get a swing on the third contact when they were out of system. They were kind of setting and passing balls over the net. All event long, that has not been the case. Guys are looking for that step close, being aggressive, and it changes the entire atmosphere, because it isn't just a free ball that allows you to reset and now finish the point. It's making everyone play defense. You've got to respect it as a blocker.
Yeah.
And across the league, as we see everyone start to bring that to the table, that elevates the level of play.
Yeah, I totally agree with you, Nick. I think it's what you want to see is that when it is a free ball, that's a huge deal, because it should never be a free ball.
Right.
You should have good enough volleyball players on the court that if the setter does dig the ball, whoever steps into set can give a great hittable set to their teammate that they can hit almost in system, right? That's where the kind of the level of volleyball is now in 2021, right? So, those free balls, we can leave those to, the beginners, and in 2020. But these days, get your feet to the ball, step close, be aggressive. Make sure you get a good quality contact with your hand on the ball. Don't change your arm swing just because you're taking a little bit off. It's kind of like golf, right? If you're trying to slow your swing down because you're trying to be a little specific, you're actually creating more areas to error, right? So make it the same arm swing. Make sure the contact is the same, but just kind of dial it down just a tiny little bit, right?
Yep. And we're seeing the Tyrants being on top of that right now. They're doing a great job extending rallies. And now we're back in the days of old, the best of 3.
Yeah, just like our first match this morning. Well, we're definitely
Robinson with a huge dig. Nick West swipes once again. There's the defense coming out from the Tyrants. Misconnection doesn't go their way. And the Tyrants are determined to whittle down the Stunners offense. Robinson laying out on the back line, covering up that hole. We see a great defensive move from Real Vieira as he steps in to defend against the Nick West swipe to the right. And that's some stellar defense.
Yeah, I like the heart. I like the heart of the Tyrants right now.
And now we see the dig back row from number 10. Reset. Spencer goes to Hilling. Hilling waits, finds a swing, but no touch happens.
No, we get a touch.
Oh, yeah, I did. Okay, thank you. Finds that touch, gets the point for the Stunners.
Yeah, Matt Hilling bailing his squad out right there. A little bit of a broken play. Got his feet to the ball, went high hands cross court off in the middle to score the point for the Stunners.
We're seeing there now Quinones, he didn't like that the other 2 back row players had gotten their digs, and he wanted to start that rally off getting his turn.
Yep.
Andrews gets a nice out-of-system pass. And Tim Johnson jumps, takes a sip of his coffee, reads the morning paper, and then takes a swing into the corner. Jarvis unable to come up with the dig.
That from where I'm sitting, that ball was attacked over the hands of the blockers.
Yep. Grosso goes deep. Good pass by Jarvis. West finding another swing, poked over. Reset for the Stunners. Hilling gets this set, goes to the hard angle. No block contact there. That one just goes wide and a point for the Tyrants. Once again, Real Vieira just finding another dig.
Yeah, again, the heart of the Tyrants right now is producing some points for their squad and extending the rallies, getting some scoops, and then celebrating their success.
And you might have a heart, but that man's got an arm.
Yeah, it's nice to see Jair respond.
Getting after that one.
He's got some big shoulders. He can put his team on his back for sure and, kind of carry some load that, the Stunners might need right now. But Stunners need to create some sense of urgency, go on some little mini runs here, make some points, and that's not going to help the cause, unfortunately. Not too sure what the game plan was with that serve.
I think the toss got away from him. Looked like it slipped out of his hand a bit there, and he was trying to just manage, but just couldn't quite get there. Love it now with the float. Goes after Hurwitz. High ball out to Jarvis.
Wow, lucky.
They get a net against them. Tyrants got to be disciplined. They're bailing the Stunners out on that one with a net.
Real lucky there for the Stunners to get a net violation by Tim Johnson because that ball was way out of bounds. It could have continued to harm the Stunners, emotions and things, but unfortunately the net violation for the Tyrants.
West with a huge serve. Now goes back to Johnson. High swing. That's one of the things I love about the two middles on the Stunners that we see right now. They are not just middle blockers. Nick West has had multiple digs this match already. He is all out, ready to play defense after that serve, and he finds some great defensive moves.
You get one opportunity to play back row as a middle blocker now, and if you get a chance to get a dig, you want to make sure everyone in the gym saw it, right? That was Nick's chance. He has gotten a couple of digs, so give him some credit. And he's doing a great job on defense. But it's always fun to see a middle blocker get a nice dig, or especially a rundown with a little kind of stab to bring it back to the court.
Yeah, absolutely. So we just saw Johnson opt to float serve at the end of the last game, and he goes to it again instead of that big jump serve. But now Santiago swings 1-on-1.
Wow.
Robinson takes that, lands on the ground, turns around, and leaves the ground once again as Grosso picks him up to celebrate.
Pretty big stuff down right there by Robinson. He's going to remember that one for a while, and that could be a huge momentum swing for the Tyrants.
Good pass by Jarvis. They go right back, block touch up high, and Jair gets his point back. He's fired up once that one. Got to say, I like the way that Joey Jarvis is passing. He's made some good adjustments, stepped up. And yesterday when he was a little tough, just out of touch, he's making it work for him his way right now. He's doing a good job, really putting the ball in his hands as much as possible, and he's getting targeted with 70% of the serves right now, so he's making it work for him.
Well, he's got to realize that he's probably going to be the serving target for most teams since he's been out of the game for a little while.
Yep.
So he needs to be ready and prepared, and hopefully he clearly is now. Maybe it wasn't at the very beginning of the game, or at the match, but he's started to see that that's going to be their preferred target is him.
Yep. Robinson goes to that float and back-to-back in the net. I think right around the score last game, we were having the same conversation with a couple in the net.
We'll see if we get a third in a row here. But
yeah, right.
Hopefully not.
I wasn't going to say it, but I was thinking it.
My turn to jinx it,
yeah.
Nick.
Good pass going backside to Johnson. Swings OT, but that's going to be a nice hand dig there, and Hilling takes his turn. Swings high off, but scooped and picked up. Quinones goes back to Johnson once again. Johnson swings deep. Joey Jarvis tells Santiago, drop your hands. That one's going long, and long it does go indeed.
I like that strategy when Tim Johnson's hitting in transition from the back row especially. Maybe just let him swing with no blocker up, right? Take your block out of the picture and see how he reacts to it, because we'll see right there, he hit that one long, which means that he's aiming for hands.
Right.
And if your hands aren't there, then he can't hit your hands, right?
Yeah.
So strategy that I remember kind of employing back when I was playing club volleyball. You had a guy that would hit the ball. We just pulled our hands down.
Yeah.
Fake him out, and we got some points off of it because he couldn't find court from the back row.
And that's something we were talking about earlier when we were kind of talking about the little chess game that's been going on between Joey Jarvis and Johnson on right in front of us here. But it's that same technique of pulling that block and just kind of how do you want to manage your hands, because the only option is not just blocking. You know, you can do some other stuff to make people work.
Yep.
Tight pass. Quinones throws the pineapple, but that one's long. And Joey Jarvis gets the up front view as he tracks that all the way to the corner. We've seen a couple pineapples so far this event. I think we saw the setter Sullivan for Southern Exposure land one yesterday against the Stunners.
Yeah.
And then we saw one more from Michael Keegan yesterday. Talked a little bit about, he is from IPFW, the true, the origin of the pineapple out there from the balls.
Gotcha. All right, now I understand where the references lay with that one.
Yep.
But yeah, it was a good effort. Well timed, just poorly executed.
Robinson puts only a one pass up there, and Grasso swings big. Quinones goes for a forced swing to the outside, covered by Robinson once again. Third time's a charm. Grasso stepping backwards finds the court and beats the angle of the antenna. And that's going to be the technical timeout. When the teams are tied at 7, Gianluca Grasso puts the team on his back to bring them up.
Was that 3 or 4 straight
Three swings
Three
there.
straight swings to Gianluca.
And he kept getting pushed further and further outside the court. I think the next one would have put him in the stands.
You know what, though? The farther outside you get from the court, it actually gives you a great angle to hit more court, right? It's a little chaotic. You got guys that are out of the equation on defense, right, when they're playing back row. And, he was able to take advantage of it for sure.
Definitely made it work there. And, that's one of those things that you talk about volleyball IQ so much. And that's a great example where you're going to see it happen, because very few people practice blocking and playing defense against someone that's so far outside the court. So at that point, Grasso's options, he's just trying to find court. But the pressure and onus of the situation is on the Stunners to adjust their block, to adjust their defensive moves, because there's only one angle that's going to let that ball come in. And that's kind of that same thing that some of the Stunners guys were not pleased with how their system adjusted there at the end of that point.
Yeah, a little bit. You got to create that situation in the practice gym, and you can see that there was a little breakdown in communication and execution that time from the Stunners defense.
Yeah. And now we're going to see Ryan Mon coming back, trying to put a little bit more pressure with his float serve. Finds Jarvis in the hands. Set goes outside to Hilling. And Hilling uses that outside or that inside angle, beats Quinones there.
Yeah, Matt Hilling continuing to hit the sharp, hard angles. That time rattling it through, Haven't seen Matt kind of turn it down yet at all, or, try to aim deeper in the quarter for high hands. But he's getting the in-system sets, and he's trying to take advantage of them and hit them, straight down in the meat of the court.
High ball out. There's only going to be one option. That's Tim Johnson here. Swings that same deep. And there you see Stunners opt to have Nick Amato in middle back defense and Joey Jarvis in the left. But Johnson able to sniff that one out or just swing deep smartly, and no dig from Amato. I got to say, Nick Amato comes from the program, and I believe the Allen Knight philosophy is I'm not here to train middles, outsides, or setters. I'm here to train volleyball players. I want guys to be able to do it all. And he still does that at practice. You see all sorts of reps. But Victoria, what's your take on all that?
Thanks, Nick. The Stunners need to know that the ball is going to number 17 for the Tyrants, and they need to adjust their defense for this specifically. they also need to stay a little bit more steady in their head. Their head game's getting a little bit wavy right now. It's all about how do you react when you're under pressure. Big players rise to the occasion and rise and live for the pressure. And we have to see that from the Stunners here. Nick?
Absolutely. I think both teams are finding their way to get that happening right now. Santiago goes for the big swing. Jarvis gets underneath of it, covers up his guy. And now we see Robinson with the first pass. Quinones outside, and that's going to go to Johnson. Goes 4-4, hard angle. Ends that one on his terms. Fantastic defense on both sides. But the guys in orange able to come up and take the 1-point lead after a huge rally.
Nice to see Tim Johnson get that strong kill from the left side, right? As the opposite, that's the one rotation he's hitting from the left. And in a longer extended rally, he got more attempts from the left side. It shows his range. It's nice to see.
A little bit of a, I think that was a back two option, kind of a tough angle to see, but they went for change that look up a little bit on the offense. Hilling comes in, swings that one wide. Grosso goes short. Hurwitz takes care of it, but the set's going to go outside. High hands. And that's just that size that Santiago brings to the table. I think he's honestly 6'10 or 6'11. If you go stand next to him, we don't have his height on the sheet, but from what I remember looking at him previously, I think he's up there.
Yeah, he's a big boy, for sure. I think you're right. He's all at 6'10". He's hitting the ball at a high point. He's bringing some serious heat. He's not turning it down. He's just swinging for the fences.
Robinson with a good pass, goes backside here to Johnson, goes for a little bit slide of an approach to get on that one. Hilling's going to take hands here to Joey Jarvis. Goes off the high hand. Grosso lays out on the back line. Now we set outside to Robinson. He swings high hands, but no one home. Disciplined blocking move from the Stunners. Funnels that ball out of bounds, and the Stunners say, thanks for the free point.
Good real point scoring there by the Stunners. We haven't seen them get a lot of real points or true points yet in this set, and so they definitely needed that one. Give credit to Grosso with the layout dig and the nice attack lines by the Tyrants, but that's a big point for the Stunners for sure.
Hilling goes off speed, targeting Robinson once again. Love it getting activated, but that's a dig by Andrews. Hilling steps in to take ball two. Chop off the top and reset. Tyrants have one option to the outside. Chop down the line. Robinson can't get that line swing to work for him once again. And something that we had kind of addressed that was going well so far with the management of swings for the Tyrants in those high pressure situations is a little wavering here in the last 3 to 4 points. They're getting the defensive moves, but they've got to be able to convert them offensively.
Yeah, the defensive things, you know, if you don't convert offensively in transition, those defensive digs are all for nothing.
Hilling putting the pressure on. Lovett gets involved. Spencer goes to Jarvis on the outside. Doug once again, now Grosso calls it off, takes this one, bump set to Johnson on the opposite. Dug by Hilling in the middle of the court. Andrews wants his swing back to Jarvis, and there's gonna be a ball on the tape, no net. Santiago step close, roll shot over the top. Dug by Quinones on the backside. Lovett back sets to Robinson. Robinson jams the ball down through the block of Santiago and West. Point for the Tyrants.
what yeah, Nick. Take a breather for a second, my friend. Nice job by you. But well played by Robinson to sneak that ball kind of between Jair and the net there, sort of the undersized attacker going against the bigger hitter. Great scramble plays by both sides there. You know, we're not even halfway through this third set. I mean, I feel like we're in a fifth game. Yeah, there's still a long way to go here.
Lovett sends it deep, covered up by Hurwitz. Now the back set to Santiago once again. Dug by Quinones, that's gonna be sent over, and there's a block cover. That one's gotta go over. Andrews takes it over. Back set to Grosso on the Bick route, and no, Nick West gets a block touch. It's too late, no dig, and that's gonna be the Tyrants coming up. We're seeing a lot of very coordinated plays right now from both middles on Tyrants, being able to turn quickly and find balls coming back at them a little bit faster than expected to keep them alive, extend rallies. Love to see it.
Again, give credit to Coach Grosso for training this team 4 days a week. You can see that polish coming out now.
Hilling wants his turn. He goes for that back quick set, 40 there, swings into Grosso. God, there are so many matchups that you could just break down guys against their counterparts and how they're scoring. The Santiago versus Johnson, you know, sometimes the Joey Jarvis Johnson head-to-head. We've seen Hilling versus Grosso. There's so many.
Yeah, it's fun to see the matchups.
It is. Nice pass by Grosso, good serve, and there's gonna be a huge activation on the 3 set to number 15, Ryan Mon. A name that we have been able to sprinkle throughout here as he finds his activation, and that is a great run there from number 10, Cedric Quinones.
Yeah, he's setting a great offense. He's spreading out the wealth. He's doing the back row attacking, in transition, which is a great skill to see. You can tell they're familiar with playing with one another and expect those plays to happen.
Jarvis high pass in the middle. They're going to air that out. Santiago. Nice reset. Spencer Andrews takes first ball, so that means Hilling's got hands on second. Santiago once again dug that time, and that's going to be jammed over by Ryan Mon. Dug by Hilling. Free ball coming from Santiago. Tyrants slowed down, back in system. They go to Grosso, and that's dug by Hilling. Spencer tries to track it down, and he's able to. A reset once again. This one to the outside. Robinson goes hard angle. Dug once again by Jarvis. Step close, hard angle swing. Picked up by Tyrants, and now Daniel Jacobs with a swing. Another dig by the Stunners. Jarvis chops over the top, and that one's able to find the court. 8 big swings, all dug, to be ended by the finesse and the off speed of Joey Jarvis. Good luck to anyone taking stats, because that's a tough one.
Joey Jarvis, nice job. Make sure that he gets a nice little roll shot there to end the rally. Sorry, I'm just trying to fix my ears real quick from Nick. That was a
Well, I can't hear you in mine, so you're going to have to forgive me.
I got you loud and clear, my friend.
Santiago with a jump serve. Good pass by Grosso. In system, back to Mon in the middle. Hilling wants his turn on the Bic. Great control, great activation. Spencer Andrew finding a nice look that we haven't really seen so far with a consistent Bic attack there from Matt Hilling, and that's working wonders right now for the Stunners.
Yeah, they do need to be able to incorporate Matt into the back row for sure, whether it's a Bic or a 40 they ran earlier. You can't rely purely only on your opposite to hit from the right back position, but in today's game you got to have a Bic attack as well.
Santiago once again looking for that big toss. There it is. Kept alive by Grosso, but limited options. Robinson takes that swing.
That's what we were talking about earlier, Nick, with the step close on the non-perfect set.
Yep.
Right, so one of those things. Don't just blast it in the net. Give your team a chance. It doesn't have to be a kill every single time. Put the ball in play and give your blocking defense a chance to score the point.
Yeah, absolutely. But, I mean, we are seeing by far, I think, some of the best volleyball that we've seen this weekend, just in terms of the rallies. There have been monster rallies for just everywhere for the last 15 to 20 points right now. Both these teams definitely determined to give no free ground. So taking a 2-point lead here for the Stunners feels like the biggest breath of fresh air in the scoreboard we've seen in a while.
Yeah, I mean, this has been a 2-point, 1-point game, I mean, from the start, and I don't expect it to change. These two teams, unless there's like a 3, 4, 5-point run, I mean, they're going to be neck and neck the whole way. And the first 2 games were deuce games each. I wouldn't expect this one to be any differently.
Yep.
Especially, these guys are still throwing the haymakers like we talked about early on in this match. And, it seems that they're starting to figure each other out a little bit more, but the levels have both increased on both sides.
Yeah, and it really speaks to, there's so much about what a hitter wants to hit versus what the block wants to funnel and where the defense wants to position. So we're seeing all of these teams kind of make those right adjustments, create a sense of, urgency, a sense of normalcy in their defense, and just so many things that are really working in these long rallies. And everybody on every team is really having to participate right now. No one's able to kind of just fly under the radar. Everyone's getting, plenty of stuff hit their way.
And that's going to be expected in every single match this weekend and every event, that we do as the NVA. I mean, that's sort of the standard and product of volleyball that we're trying to, provide.
Absolutely. Now another set to Jacobs on the outside, goes for that hard angle, and Nick Amato not quite able to get over.
I think the blocking of the Stunners needs to improve a little bit. There's a lot of balls going between the blockers and the nets, right? So they're not quite penetrating over the net enough. You have Andrews, he's a 6-foot blocker. He's in the front row right now. He's blocking with Amato. And I think that, the blocking is a bit of a liability for the Stunners.
Yeah, definitely. So getting dynamic with that, and that's going to be Nick Amato running the fist drift package from Long Beach State. Comes out at an aggressive angle, flying right at Spencer Andrews. And Spencer gets to dictate exactly where that set goes, whether it's a push or a one. Opens up Amato to drop his swing and cut it back.
Sort of the patented Amato swing has come straight in and then drift away from the setter and go for a cutback kill like that.
Yeah, it's actually something that when I was talking about, something that Long Beach really likes to train for a lot of their middles, and it's something that they talk about here as opposed to rounding through the middle of the court. It's an aggressive right at your setter.
Something you'll see also internationally
Yes.
at that level as well. You'll see these guys that are super athletic, jump really well. They'll take off from one spot and they'll literally drift through the air, and that's the point. That's the plan.
Wow, huge swing from Hilling.
Yeah, big no-look, crossbody swing down the line by Matt Hilling right there.
Put that one in his pocket. Save it for later.
Well, it was a good time for it. I mean, he hadn't done that one yet. He hasn't been hitting a lot of line, but that was a well-timed swing by Matt for sure.
Now Amato back trying to create a little bit of a run with the float serve. Maintain this 2-point lead. Good pass by Robinson. Backside to Jacobs once again. Santiago, comfortable dig with his platform. Comes off the girder, and Spencer Andrews chasing it down. Nick Amato tries to find that one over. And once again, I do want to address for the fans at home, that is our one FIVB modification rule for the NVA, is that our ceilings are live. We have a couple facilities with some lower ceilings that we play at, so in order to prevent that from ending the rally, the NVA has opted to modify that rule only from the FIVB rulebook.
I think that's a good modification, Nick. I mean, in that instance, you saw a double roof touch, which is rare,
Yep.
you know. But, you know, for us in here, I think that's a smart thing to do.
Now a great tempo to the outside. Matt Hilling gets it done. And we saw the adjustment there that you've been wanting to see in terms of where you're taking on that angle, but didn't get the block hands over the net, and so it still funnels down the chest.
Well, yeah, and, you know, Matt let the blockers know, you know, that they got to change it up a little bit. I wouldn't be surprised to see the Tyrants blockers do get him at some point because they're real close to blocking him pretty hard, and when they do, it's going to be a pretty big celebration when you see it.
Yep. Spencer goes to the hands of Robinson. And there's a nice pickup punched over by Quinones and added a little too much. Goodness gracious, though. Number 27, Clinton Julian Riviera Jr. Not only does he have a great name, but he's got a great ability to improve the Tyrants' defense with multiple digs. And there's going to be the timeout. Down by 3. I think that might be our first 3-point lead of the match, or of the set, sorry.
It's definitely the first 3-point lead of this set, Nick. I think it's a good timeout by Coach Grasso for the Tyrants to sort of maybe take a breather, create some sort of a strategy out of this timeout, out of this, what they're going to do with this serve, who's in the front row, really figure out who's in the front row, what rotations they have so they can basically come out of this timeout with a set play and, you know, try to kind of create some momentum into the, you know, into this third set.
I think it's very interesting to see also a very distinct difference in the way that both these teams want to run their offense. So we see a very, very in-system refined passing over here with the Tyrants. They're running a very flat, quick offense. Stunners, they know that they're dealing with some passing with Jarvis that's a little bit less in tune. Jake Hurwitz hasn't been, I think he's been in the gym a little bit less as he's kind of been picking things back up as well. So they're erroring high and give Spencer a chance to just set the pins. And I think it's working well, but it's just interesting to see the kind of the difference between the two. And there's Grasso running that back too. He saw Hilling get one earlier and he wanted his turn.
Yeah, he wanted his turn. That's a nice set play right out of a timeout. I thought I saw that ball kind of come to rest in Quinones' hands for a second. A little bit of a dish, but they clearly knew where they were on the same page, and Grasso took advantage of it.
Good pass by Jarvis. Backside to Hilling. Hilling goes for that roll shot over the top, but that one's going to hit. I think that hit the antenna, if I'm not mistaken, on the way. Maybe it was out.
I think it was just out of bounds wide. You know, he tried to throw in a little beach roll shot, baby cutty, something like that, but couldn't find the line, and that's not a well-timed error by Matt Hilling because now it's 19 serving 20.
Jarvis tight, and that's going to be Nick West looking for that off block. Good play by Robinson. Johnson now takes a swing. Hurwitz with a big dig. Hilling with a nice off-speed swing. And now's the big attack from Grasso, forced out of bounds. Nick West putting in some work right now to help funnel balls where he wants.
Yeah, I would have liked to have seen, like, as those rallies extend, okay, and you go to a back row player as the rally goes longer and longer, keep your front row involved, okay? Go overhead, try to get Tim Johnson the ball in transition, I think, as opposed to going out of the back row in transition at a big time like that.
Controlled serve, pass by Robinson, and there's the back set to Johnson. Hurwitz finds the pancake, set over by Santiago. Backside to Johnson once again, and now he finds that one down the line, I think over the outside hand of Jarvis, inside of the defense of Hurwitz.
Nick, he goes over the hand of every blocker that he hits against. I mean, like, I've never seen it before.
Yeah.
I know. I don't know who the blocker was, but it was over
it was Jarvis.
It was over his hands.
Yeah.
All right. One error that I have not seen Tim Johnson do yet is to hit the ball into the net, right? So I don't know what his hitting percentage is. It's got to be pretty strong, but we're going to get a timeout here from the Stunners. They want to regroup a little bit after those few longer rallies. Good scrambles by both teams, but without having a true coach on the sideline, it's a little difficult to call a timeout. I'm not too sure who's running the team over there, but it seems like
a bit of a hive mind.
A little bit of a communal effort.
Yeah, so generally the way that they opt to run most of the times at practice is you're going to hear Matt Hilling is the most vocal voice, but Spencer Andrews talks a lot about how he wants the offense to run and things like that. But they definitely are all coming up with ideas. Nick Amato's a very vocal voice as well. Talks about how, you know, the team kind of what adjustments they should be making. So they've got a couple guys that they definitely rely on. And if you're paying attention to some of the nonverbal cues in terms of timeouts, the same couple guys are always on the same page, throwing quick little hand signals to each other. Yeah. But they definitely work with that every day.
Interesting team dynamic to not have a true dedicated head coach.
Oh, we see a serving substitution, and that's Arner De Jesus here. He's one of their other middles. Santiago with a big swing. Grosso lays out, finds a dig. Robinson tips over the top, forces Spencer Andrews to play some defense. Poked over by Jarvis. Quinones goes backside to Johnson. Block touch is there. Mon to recover, and Johnson once again, and that's going to be a terminal block from Nick West. Squared up by Joey Jarvis, and that two-man dynamic duo shuts that one down.
Yeah, big block at a nice time for the Stunners. They needed to get a block for a point against Johnson, and that one finally got it done to give them 22-20 for a 2-point lead.
And you know, I might have missed the substitution, but so that was Arner De Jesus, who was the middle that started yesterday over Ryan Mon. And so I don't know if that was a sub that he's back in for Lovett, but something to keep track of in terms of personnel changes, since we really haven't seen many other than that double sub on the side of Tyrants. No. I'm going to keep my eye out, see if there's a middle change up.
Interesting time to throw in a new middle, you know, into the match that hasn't been playing or anything like that.
Like I said, you know, it might be one of those things that they opted to use him as a serving sub or something like that, and just like that matchup a little bit more.
Yeah, Ryan Mon is still in the front
Mon's
row.
still there, so it would have been for Lovett, but I'm just not sure. I kind of caught it really late.
Yeah.
And we're getting to that point of the game where something interesting might happen on the side of Stunners. They might have been talking about during that timeout, and I'd be very curious to know, are they prepping that back row blocking substitution for Spencer Andrews here? Nick West finds an ace. That one's in.
Well, It doesn't really matter. That's a well-timed ace by Nick West. The Stunners needed that for sure, and you could not have asked for a better time than that.
And once again, opening that up to a 23-20. Man, we've hit some late innings here where the Stunners guys are more than willing to step up to the challenge and hit some tough serves. They are not backing off. West with a big rip there. Robinson, great pass, and Ryan Mon looks for a swing back to area one. Santiago with a high swing, chops over the top. Quinones takes the dig. Johnson with the offset. Dug by Spencer. Big angle swing from Jair Santiago. And he's determined.
Give credit to Nick Amato with that very nice set, okay, after Andrews dug the ball down the line.
And that's a little bit of what I was kind of mentioning earlier. When you train a volleyball player, not a middle, he's always ready to step in. He's always ready to set. He plays outside for them at practice. He plays right side.
Yeah, totally agree with you, Nick. That's a great
well-rounded player.
Yep.
Nick West is absolutely putting the pressure on with these jump serves.
So set point now for the Stunners, okay? See if you can keep it in, right? Put some pressure on the Tyrants and how the reaction is from both sides.
Goes down the line this time. Now back set goes to Johnson. Johnson goes over the top, and like you said, honestly though, that's the look that Stunners wants. With the lead that they've developed, I think that's a really, really good take on how to play that point.
That's sort of their MO. It's their personality. They play very comfortably and free when they have the lead.
Yeah.
When they're down or it's tight, they tend to tense up and magnify the errors. But then plays like that happen. You know, it's an ace, and now it's 24-22, and you know that little percentage of not being able to win right away comfortably is sort of starting to inkle in a little bit.
Johnson goes right back, hand pass by Jarvis, back set to Jair Santiago, roll shots it in, dug by Johnson. Robinson goes for that jam once again. It worked against the big block of Santiago earlier, so.
Nick, you know, where we're sitting here in the broadcast booth, we have a great angle of the blocker's hands against the hitters. At least I do.
Yep.
Those hands are not getting over the net.
Not at all.
For the Stunners, and so that's a huge issue that they have to fix.
Another good pass there, goes back to Santiago, and that's Robinson getting the terminal block. You know, we were a little critical of some of the plays early on that he was missing, kind of swings in the net, swings out. But if you're gonna show up at that post-2020 part of the game,
most important part.
Get a jam, get a block. Yep. 24-24.
It'll be interesting to see the response from the Stunners here.
That's a swing from Jarvis off the hands into the antenna. Jarvis definitely ready to find that point back on the side of the center scoreboard.
We haven't called his name much recently. I feel like he hasn't got a lot of offensive opportunities in this set, but when his number got called at that point, he was ready to go for a kill.
And we're right back into that situation that we found ourselves last game. We're going to see that blocking substitution with Shane Beamer coming on. I believe Shane's going to stay in the middle. Nakamoto will shift to the right, if I'm not mistaken. And then Jair on the back line. Good pass. Goes to the backside. Johnson.
Big swing. Big boy swing right there by Tim Johnson. Down the line out of the back row. At a great time in the game for that to happen.
Absolutely. And you know what? I think there's a really important thing that, I love the dynamic ability to put a middle blocker sub in, shift your middle to the right, but then there's a recognition that your big hitter with Tim Johnson's on the backside against Jarvis, and so we see Quinones go back and take that matchup. Outside to Jarvis, roll shot, covered up. Tyrants shut it down and find a terminal block, and with that, a 1-point lead after being down 24-21. Timeout called on the side of the Stunners. And that's really one of those intangibles that we look at and focus on so much, is that's the pressure and the difference between good and great setters. Quinones identifies very quickly, if I'm setting my outside into the block of Nick Amato and Shane Beamer, that's really going to be a difficult situation.
Yep.
If I can get a great back set to Johnson one-on-one against Joey Jarvis, that's going to be one of our best opportunities to get this point. And it's so hard to realize that sometimes when I'm watching it, but the more you dial in and see high-level play, it's so prevalent in these great setters. Heads-up play.
Well, you know, it's super important right now. I see the Stunners, are a little frustrated for sure after that play. They were up 24, 21. 21.
It might have been 24-20. I know 24-21.
I see there might be some comments being made by the referees. I think we're going to see a yellow card against the Stunners here. Specifically at Matt Hilling, he kind of took some frustration out on his reusable water bottle over there. And so a little bit of a warning there, but set point to the Tyrants right now.
Go for that float, target Joey Jarvis. And Nick Amato is not done yet. That high point of contact really going to work for him there.
That play should have happened on the previous one, right? The pass was right there was perfect from Jarvis. Where on the play before that pass was like a 1-point pass, and the middles were a non-option. And at this point in the match and at this level of volleyball, that's unacceptable. Pass the ball to the top of the tape. Give your team a chance to set whoever they want, and that's what you're going to get from it. You'll get rewards for it.
Jarvis now airs it out. Grasso, perfect pass, and he wants this set. Jarvis gets a hand dig, not quite able to keep that one in. And now we're in one of my favorite volleyball instances. Okay, it was just a libero switch last time for that serving option, so Lovett is now going to undo that substitution with De Jesus. But I love it. We're in the extra innings. We're trading point for point. No time to tip here. You got to swing big.
Yeah.
Right back to Hilling. Able to get a block touch and try to chase down. Tyrants not able to come up with that one.
Good effort by the Tyrants. Again, no hands over the net. That ball gets deflected. Nice rundown. A little chaos. They just couldn't return it. But good effort all the way around. And let's see how the Stunners can now set their block and defense against the Tyrants' offense.
Amato's had some success creating a run with his last float serve. See if he can replicate. Robinson with a low pass, but still able to run. Grasso, and Grasso not afraid to put that one down with authority.
Again, we've seen that matchup earlier on in the match where it's Grasso against Andrews. And every time Grasso has come out scoring the point. So the Stunners need to be able to catch that and make some sort of an adjustment to get a bigger blocker against Grasso because they're just exposing it right now.
There it is. Quinones goes with a float. Hurwitz, great pass. And Nick West takes his option, and that one's going to be in. That's going to be a terminal block with the middle, number 22, Austin Lovett. You know, we are really seeing the middles from Tyrants today sprinkle their number into the important points when it matters most.
It's bad when we don't say their names.
Right.
But they're doing a great job of being involved. Defensive-wise, they're doing a great job blocking. Once again, we're hearing some water bottles getting thrown around, but great clutch blocking by the Tyrants, you know, at that point of the match.
Yeah, and I mean, that's the big thing here is when you're younger, middle blockers, you love seeing the big bounces. They're often the guy that gets to, they win that height race in life, you know, they get up there a little bit quicker. But as you get to that higher level of play, there's a lot of size across the net. So what really defines a great middle blocker is their ability to block. And it sounds kind of obvious because it's in the name, but it's one of those transitions that kind of happens without ever being vocalized. And we're just seeing so much contribution here because you talk about the libero being the back row general. They're the front row general. They're the one, it's their responsibility to tell their guys, I want double blocks here, I want triple blocks here. This is there in this rotation. The set is likely going to this hitter, and they need to verbalize that.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, the middle blockers are what you're talking about, the quarterback of the block. You know, defense and schemes, right? Knowing who the hitters are for all three of the front row blockers is a key. Whether it's a front row setter or a back row setter, obviously knowing that. Knowing who the key targets are offensively for the other team, and then how you're going to prepare to scheme against it, right? Some of the times the coaches are kind of calling in schemes to the middle, right? Then the middle's, with the hand signals showing everybody what's going to happen so that the back row knows what the front row is going to do on block and defense.
Absolutely, and that was, you know, I like calling back to just kind of keep fans that maybe didn't see November and dial them back and just talk about the progression of the league. One of the things I was always trying to challenge the league and what I wanted to see teams doing was upping their involvement and their usage of middles. I thought the middles in that tournament, we could have seen more. And now already this weekend, we've seen LA Blaze yesterday using their middles effectively. We saw Patrice from the Matadors last night having an absolute standout night. Now we're seeing in the Tyrants both Lovett as well as, I'm spacing here, sorry, Ryan Mon. You know, a lot of these new teams or teams that might have struggled to be as high in the rankings at the finishing in November, they're really coming back, establishing a great middle, and it's great to see because that was a level up that kind of needed to happen.
Well, yeah, I mean, I totally agree with you. You know, offensively speaking for middles, like we all know that, you know, in order to run the middle, you know, effectively, you got to have a pretty solid passing game, right? And as the connections between the middles and the setters develop, as the pass gets pulled off the net, they're comfortable throwing that set into their middles, right? But there's got to be some work put in to understand and realize what situations that can happen, okay?
Yeah.
You see it at the higher levels. You see it in college level where those guys, they train together 5-6 days a week, and they know in certain situations if the center comes off to the 3-meter line, I might still get a set here.
Right.
So I'm gonna work hard and bust my butt to get up in the air and be ready to hit, you know? So something that's got to be developed and takes time and reps.
Yeah, and this is one of those matches that I'm not confident that we're about to see this end during this set. This one might be going the distance. These teams are trading punches, and it's currently 2-1 in set count in the favor of the Tyrants, able to sneak that out. And, really the score is not indicative of any point during the game about who's going to win, because everyone is showing right now that they're willing to make a late game run and take it away.
It's a little bit of a deflating loss for the Stunners, for sure. I mean, they're up 24-21, and to lose 29-27, especially when they might have had a couple of opportunities to finish that set off. So really got to see how they respond right now. You know, the Tyrants, they have the momentum. And if they continue with that momentum and doing what they've been doing, the Stunners are going to have a hard time kind of rebounding from that.
Spencer Andrews to start here. Good pass by Robinson. That's going to be a set to Luca. And Gianluca Grasso goes down the line, finds that one, and able to paint that line.
Really nice attack line by Grasso right there to go outside the line hand of the line blocker to find the corner. Really high aggressive swing by him.
Flo goes after Jarvis. Good pass, goes back to Hilling, and there's that inside run once again. Big kill. That's a great way to answer back. Got a little powwow here as the Stunners all help mop up together.
So perspiration on the floor. These guys are all working hard. It's starting to get warm in this gym.
Yep. A little different also from November where we had snow outside going on, and we were right in that path of the open door.
Yeah.
Trying to stay warm.
That was pretty fun. Have all that snow on the last day of that event last year.
Yep. Big serve from Hilling. Perfect pass, goes back once again. Tim Johnson blocked into him. Joey Jarvis, there we go. He gets what he's wanting. Huge takeaway.
So I sort of expected to see that exact play happen in game number 1, right? That's the first block Joey Jarvis has gotten against Tim Johnson, I think. And Tim is still highly hitting above Joey Jarvis, but he brought that ball down and allowed Jarvis to get involved in it, and Jarvis, was disciplined and got his hands over the net. So if I'm Coach Grasso, I'm telling Tim Johnson to keep hitting deep. Don't start hitting straight down like everybody else. Hit the ball deep, and let's see what we get for it.
Hilling, while he's able to get one reel, ends with that serve in the net. But like we said, if you're getting real points, that's where you create leads. Again, I talked about it a little bit yesterday. When we say real points, just to kind of expand that volleyball vocabulary, that's when you score a point while you're serving. So that opens up your lead by one quote-unquote real point, not a side-out exchange.
Yep, ref called that ball down, and he's the farthest one away. I don't know if I really like that angle, but that's the way it's going to go. He gets the final word. Just check the court for some, perspiration once again.
But what I do like is I like the immediate response from Coach Grasso is he just tells guys, don't worry about it. Turn around. Let's reset.
Yeah.
Let's not dwell. It doesn't matter. Can't change it now.
Don't dwell on something that you can't control in terms of the referee calls, and just move on to the next play.
West has had a very impactful serving match so far. Goes right back. Robinson goes for that hard angle and able to use that block for a tool there.
And if the Stunners could just dial in their blocking a little bit more, especially their wing blockers, that would make a huge advantage for them. Just become that much more prevalent because their blocking is a bit of a liability. We're seeing good touches, but we're not seeing block backs to the ground.
Yeah. It's interesting. I'm curious. It worked at the end of that last game. Tim Johnson was able to open up the service run with that standing float or like the little toss float. But I'm curious where he opted out of. I wonder if that serve under the net ended the jump serving run that we were seeing that he was starting with.
Hard to say, you know. I mean, you're right, though. A good observation by you, Nick. He's a little gun shy on the jump spin serve from the inline after that miss.
Tight pass. It's going to be a very, very vertical middle from Ryan Mon, making sure that setter number 10, Quinones, has an option to set, and he puts that one straight down.
Yeah, props to the middle for being up and available for his boy to set him, and he rewarded him for it. And that's what you get.
That's going to be a double touch as Spencer Andrews looks for a dynamic set to Nick Amato to get him involved. He actually set it into the left hand of Nick Amato before it got to his right.
That's something you see every day, a little bit of a, you know, unfortunate misconnection, but to go off a ricochet off his left hand and then he hit it over, it's actually that's a double contact. Gets the rules.
Yeah. Now a big route for Hilling. Hilling gets swing into that deep corner and gets the kill there. And it's funny, the more I'm around this sport doing the commentating, just seeing high-level play, I love when I see a point that I've never seen before. I can safely say, I've never seen that before.
Yeah. Now, and if I'm the Stunners right now, if I'm Andrews, I'm trying to get Hilling involved a little bit more, especially in the back row, through the front row. Keep him hot, keep him invested, you know, and keep him on point. You know, Matt tends to kind of drift away if there's some errors back-to-back, but if he's swinging and being involved, and he likes that a lot. So. But you can't do anything if you can't make your serve, Nick. So you got to make your serves, especially at this point of this match. Those missed jump float serves aren't going to help anybody.
Nope, they certainly are not. Mon looks for his now. Nice flat, gets a one option here. Hey, you called it.
Yeah, I mean, that was a little bit of a take the trash out kind of play for Matt. He was the only option, and he took advantage of it. The block wasn't that well formed, but again, in-system things, again, also we want to see Matt probably coming out of the back row, hitting from the right, you know, carrying his team to a potential victory maybe.
Amato with the float serve there. Grasso always willing to challenge that block, and you know, that's the one thing I'm realizing when I talk about some of these swings. I'm realizing I can't see the Stunners block from where I sit. So I can't always see who it is out there. So that's where sometimes I'm like, oh, there's a big swing, and then I see, you know, who trickles off, and I'm like, oh, that makes a little bit more sense.
Little guy blocking out there.
Yep. Going outside, that one's off, but Hilling's going to manage that, turns it down the line. Big swing, Quinones not able to come up with that one.
Yeah, so Andrews is definitely the blocking liability for the Stunners, and Grasso knows it when they're lined up against each other, and so does Rodriguez or Quinones, the setters for, you know, Tyrants. They're going to take advantage of that and highlight it.
Nice pass by Robinson, goes back. Grasso with a hitting line swing.
Wow.
A better point to go into a technical timeout, I know not.
Oh, wow. Wow. I don't know where he learned that one. Probably down in Brazil, but that was a hard, no look, drop your head, swing as hard as you can, and just absolutely thunder that bounce down the line on Matt Hilling.
There's a hand signal that people are fairly familiar with in the high levels of volleyball, and that's where you draw a box with your finger, and that's indicating you want to replay. And I know we don't have it just yet on the broadcast, but I want to replay just to see that swing one more time.
I think we all do for sure. Someone at home is going to edit that one swing out on YouTube and really highlight that one.
Oh, yeah, while we're at it, we'd like to say hello, YouTube. This is Nick and Matt with the NVA, and that was Gianluca Grasso putting a hole in the floor.
Yeah, that was big. That was big, Nick. Wow. Talk about a haymaker. They've been trading haymakers all match. You know, why stop now? And, you know, expect to see a few more of those. And what I expect to see is the Stunners try to retaliate a little bit with some bounces of their own. And if it works, great. If it doesn't work, it's going to be bad for them.
Yeah.
Okay. So, it'll be interesting to see.
8-7. Once again, no big leads able to be developed here. Teams are just fighting and trading points. Grasso with the float. Nice pass by Jarvis. Hilling looks for his opportunity and swings wide on that one. Tries to turn it line, but he's had a lot of success swinging line on both sides, so Didn't quite find his look there.
Just trying to thread the needle a bit too finely on that swing. Get deep to the corner and hopefully produce a kill that way.
Float serve short once again. Hurwitz to the pass, and that's going to go outside to Santiago. Net once again on the turn.
Yeah,
yep, clear as day.
That's a good call. There was
Yep.
definitely a net violation there on the Tyrants. There's
Not
no
a-
reason to let the emotions get involved. Coach Grasso saw it too. He's telling his guys, just step back. He's right. He got it.
It was on the, and what they didn't realize, it was on the turn, so it was, it's a tough to feel that one. Victoria, there's been a lot of development so far. What's your take on the current status of the game?
Absolutely, Nick. Both sides are battling, taking big swings. It's honestly going to come down to who can minimize their errors and get on a service run. Basic fundamental skills to the game of volleyball, but basic skills win points at the end of the day. Nick?
You know, it's so crazy because you're totally hitting the nail on the head with the basic points, but we're seeing some extraterrestrial digs like that down the line. Sent deep, but this one's got to go. Sends it back. Hurwitz takes first ball. Andrews out here. Tip over the top, reset off the block. That's a double, I believe, but it's going to be continued on. Stenner's going to go outside to Santiago. Roll shot over the top. Dug by Quinones. Santiago is the option once again. Goes off the hands. Goodness gracious.
Some high-level action right there.
All starts with a huge dig from Lovett, and even though they didn't get the point, my guy could not be more fired up for that dig. We can hear an audible yell of "You're easy" from the bench. Always a favorite saying for many of these players after getting the dig to go their way.
Well,
great set by West. Middle goes back. Spencer Andrews underneath. And that one's going to get called. Joey Jarvis takes that one from the chest out in front of him. Now, there is always a push, and I believe FIVB is actually eliminating the double call in the upcoming season. So there is a move to try and let guys play as much as possible. But that one just wasn't quite it for Jarvis.
The purists out there are going to be rolling over in their graves. That's going to be, it'll be interesting if that's what happens.
Good pass by Hurwitz. Goes to the outside. Jarvis with a deep swing.
Oh my gosh. What's happening? We have some clarification on this one.
I'm not talking because there's a lot to unpack. And that was a blink.
That was weird because the ball was hit out wide by Jarvis, but then somebody was in, it looked, all of a sudden, Quinones stands up and he's on the other side of the court. And
I don't know how he got there.
Someone hit the pole or hit the net. It's like.
And I think, so again, the rule, just to kind of clarify some rules, you can touch the equipment outside the antenna.
Correct.
So if he makes the blocking move and is drifting, but as long as he doesn't touch the net, he can run into that pole as long as he just, doesn't hit anybody. But we're going to see a net call.
So it must have been some kind of net violation there.
Yeah.
And,
I have no further insight than to try to provide, here's the rule as it stands.
Right, yeah. So once there's a net violation, that negates whether the ball was in or out, right, by Jarvis's attack.
And at that point, you almost want to hit it as high as possible, give some time for the infraction to occur because the ball's not dead until it hits the floor.
Yep, you're right. That's true.
We're going to see that blocking sub coming in here. So once again, that's going to mean Beamer going to the middle. Nick Amato shifts to the right. And then Hilling goes to the right back and Santiago in the middle back. So blocks or transitions like this are made to capitalize on a big serve that you're trying to utilize the block before you really have to rally. Obviously because you've removed your setter from the play. So we'll see how it unfolds. Very quickly, very terminally, and into the bottom of the tape.
Bad timing for that missed serve, unfortunately.
Either way, the volleyball nerd in me loves to see those kind of moves made so that we can talk about different strategies as they unfold and how guys use them.
Yep.
Sorry, we're a little bit blank over here because Matt and I are listening to everything going on, trying to figure out because there's some discussion about some.
A lot of voices going on. The Stunners need to do a substitution. Tyrants are trying to figure out who the right server is. Apparently now Stunners are saying that the Tyrants are out of rotation. So we're going to have to go back to the record books here.
And where this really gets caught a lot of the time is, especially as a passer, who should be serving against you where you're standing.
Right.
And so when all of a sudden you're going up against a different server, you pick up very quickly that something isn't right. And I'm not sure exactly who saw it, whether we saw, player coach on the side, Dylan Emery there, or if that was picked up by the server seat, but I know I run into that too when we catch that.
Yeah, it's hard to tell exactly how it was determined, but it's all straight now. Here we go.
Nick Amato goes for that big wrist away, and Ryan Mon, he's got his number right now. That's a couple huge blocks in that matchup.
Here's the thing. Nick, go for it.
Yeah, I think Victoria's got a little note for her. What do you got for us, Victoria?
Yeah, so I found out that the Tyrants were out of rotation, but it was too late to call. Dylan Emery for the Stunners was on it and saw it, but unfortunately the whistle was blown, therefore they couldn't go back. Nick?
Gotcha. Providing the clarification we were all dying to hear. Appreciate the insight, Victoria. Because sometimes you also get that curiosity and you just got to know the answer, so always great to hear that one clarified.
Good insight there.
Because ultimately that's on the refs to catch that. So since the whistle was blown, that kind of absolves the error and is on Tyrants to fix that. Tip over the top, and that one's in. Great court vision. That's a huge rotation through the front row from middle blocker Ryan Mon.
Yeah, he's hot right now. Some good blocking by him, getting his hands over the net against Amato. Well-placed tip. I like that one. Calling his number a lot here as we get to the end of this fourth set.
Set to the outside on to Hilling, and Hilling once again. And this is exactly what they practice. I know there's a lot of belief from the Stunners. They have so many guys on that roster with international experience. There's a big movement in international volleyball for a lot of the European countries. They like setting the outsides inside the court even more. And it's been a bit of a transition going on, and I think the Stunners are kind of buying into that, trying it out, and getting it to work for them. Now Grasso goes up and takes his inside swing.
Yeah, once again, Andrews, we've been saying this point for most of this match, but Andrews one-on-one against Grasso. I'm going to take Grasso on that one every single time because Andrews, unfortunately, is just a bit of a blocking liability for the Stunners. And you see it full advantage taken there by Grasso for that kill.
And again, I wanna praise Quinones. He knows where the matchups are, and he's identifying it and taking advantage of it, setting Grasso there.
Yep, absolutely. That's one of the jobs as a setter.
Set to the outside. Johnson finally able to get a block touch, but an easy reset. Now Nick West running the middle in transition is one of the most important skills in volleyball, in my opinion. It really gives your offense a nice diversity and really forces the blockers to try to figure out how to get a touch there.
Yeah, as the rallies extend, the faster you can finish it by going quick in transition. It's usually a pretty good hitting percentage, especially when you have that connection between the players.
Robinson still the target for the Stunners. Set goes to Johnson high, and he just goes that, one of those things that when you're coaching younger players, you try to help them understand their technique is as you drop your off-hitting shoulder, you're going to get 2 to 3 inches in your hitting shoulder added because you're, the change in equilibrium for your shoulder height. And in a guy that's already, gravity just doesn't impact him, for him to add those couple more inches there, he just sails that one into the back corner. It's just...
Yeah, that was a nicely controlled high and deep swing by Tim Johnson. Previously this game, he had pulled it down. He got blocked by Jarvis early on. We were saying that was kind of the first time we've seen him get blocked. And when a guy jumps as high as he jumps, he shouldn't get blocked. And let's see if we have some insights from Victoria on that one.
Thanks, guys. Yeah, the Tyrant setter is doing a really great job of putting his hitters in a scoreable position, and that's how they're getting their points right now. If the Stunners want to keep themselves in this game, they need a big defensive play out of this timeout within the next 2 points. Nick?
Yeah, and that's one of those things, they're more than willing to make some changes on their defensive schemes. You'll see sometimes, like in that last rotation when they have a middle serving, you'll see Joey Jarvis shift into that left back. They have middles there. Sometimes even they have that blocking sub. So there's a lot of stuff to really unpack that this team really works to try to create some dynamic situations. And right now, they aren't quite getting the traction they need, but it definitely makes them hard to scout for teams that are not willing to spend the time.
Let's talk some big picture really quick, Nick, right
Yeah.
now, okay? The Stunners lost last night.
Yep.
What happens if they go 0-2 to start this weekend off?
You know, I don't really have an answer because that's not a world I saw us being in. Let me get through this play and try to get an answer. There's the end of that play. All right, Grosso sends that one long. I think the concern, so I know that there's some guys that are still going to be coming in to add to this roster that were unable to make event 1. But, you know, to take losses to Southern Exposure and the Tyrants, 2 teams that obviously are playing very well, but I think when you're looking up and, you know, these guys only lost to the Stingers last event, I think that's where they were kind of looking at. And so I don't know. And as someone that isn't in that team dynamic, I don't know what the current conversation to know how it changes.
So it's obviously going to be a disadvantage to be 0-2 in the conference, right, through 2 days of the first event of the season.
Yep.
Which makes this match a huge match. Oh, careful.
Game ball touch in the booth. I think we just sent our nice new Nva LED wall a little off kilter there, so our technical team getting right back to that, helping reset that. Yeah, we're golden over here.
You know, back to action now. 15 serving 16.
Good serve by Hilling, applying that pressure. Set the outside. Robinson shut down. There's the blocking adjustment that we were talking about seeing from the pins of Jair Santiago, matched by Nick West. That one's been long overdue. Robinson's been able to be very efficient in the last set and a half.
I've been harping on the Stunners wing blockers. That's a well-timed block by them to finally get one down to the ground to tie this set, or tie this set up at 16 apiece.
And they were down 3 points into that technical timeout, so answering back's been huge. A little off speed, Robinson kicks that one up. And Johnson, I need to go get a thesaurus and look up a bunch of other adjectives to describe how how vertical.
Flying.
Yeah.
Height. Vertical jump.
Jump high, hit hard. The autobiographical encounter of Tim Johnson. Doug once again, that's Lovett finding another dig back row. Hilling putting the Stunners in system. Jair Santiago with a nice high swing. West making some contact, somewhere, but he's good to go. Austin Lovett, second huge dig there in this, same guy that Doug won last round and made sure to give a little shout out that it's easy.
He's doing a great job taking up space and getting that ball, back up in the air. So always fun to see middles get those digs.
That's why I love watching the Untouchables middle, Matt Buffum, grass player, great defensive guy. Nick Amato, a couple of these middles that really play that solid defense. And that's why I like watching Ryan Munn too, because this guy is coming out. What a huge hitting window.
Yeah, absolutely. He's up early too. His arm is back. I just saw that at a great view. His arm was open, window is ready to get set, and he can just slap that thing down really fast for an easy point for the Tyrants.
And one of the big things that setters look for is their middle to have their shoulders open to the setter, because it gives you a little bit of a view of how you can find them and set them. Hilling goes for the Bick behind Spencer Andrews, sends that one just long, but that's been a little bit of an uncharacteristic hitting error for someone that's been hitting so well out of the back row.
Yeah. It's late in the game with a 2-point lead right now, and see how the Stunners respond here.
Santiago, Doug there, tracked down, and it's going to be a free ball coming back from Grosso. Just crawls it over the net, picked up by Hurwitz, and it's a free ball coming back. Quinones goes to the outside. Robinson chips it. Chicken wing dig there from Hilling. Andrews out the back of the court and reset by Amato. Andrews trying to get back onto the court. There's currently a hole there. Robinson tries to go for a reset, and there's a huge takeaway from Jair Santiago.
Man.
And a little interesting tidbit here. Both guys right there in that play at the end, Robinson and Santiago, were on the Ontario Matadors last year. So meeting up here wearing some different colors back in their old home gym.
We had guys flying all over the gym in that rally.
There was almost enough running to qualify some cardio there.
Yeah.
Robinson goes with a tight set, manages it. Now Hilling swinging with a 30 route. Grosso takes his big swing off the platform of Santiago.
Big boy swing right there. And Jair can't handle the heat.
This is the most Bix and the most aggressive back row offense we have seen so far from any teams. And to see it come in from Hilling and Grosso battling back and forth has been impressive, to say the least. A 2-point lead created here for the Tyrants. And right now they're poised to take this in 4.
First team to 20 statistically has the advantage.
Hilling with a back row attack, steps on that line, creates an infraction, looks for a substitution. And that's going to be Chris Chappelle coming in, a lefty outside.
Well, if I'm the Tyrants, I'm going to serve Chris right now.
Yep.
And look for a quick set. Come in if it's a good pass.
Middle option, that's going to be jammed to kept alive there by Amato. Ryan Mon sets tight. Grosso sneaks that one over, but that is going to be called out. I thought that hit one of the Centers players coming down,
Yeah.
but
My view was blocked, so I couldn't really see exactly what happened, but Grosso went for sort of the tip slam down swipe, and no one else saw the touch except Grosso, which means that the point will go to the Stunners.
Yep. Smaller front row here now with Chappelle and with Spencer Andrews front row. Back set to Daniel Jacobs. Takes advantage of it.
Was there a blocker up? Because I couldn't really tell, but that was pretty much, he had the entire freeway to hit through right there.
He did indeed, and to be fair, the offensive capabilities of both Daniel Jacobs and Tim Johnson make me ask that question a bit.
Oh!
I was looked away. Was that an ace?
That was an ace, a well-timed ace.
23-19 now. Timeout called here on the side of the Stunners. And that was a Ryan Mon ace.
Ryan Mon jump float deep, catches the inline ace. Well placed by him, good timing for that. 23 serving 19, Tyrants with a 4-point lead late now in game number 4.
Now, if I'm remembering correctly, there's been 4-point leads in both of the last 2 sets, and there's been a timeout called pretty much right now, and then the tide changes completely. So we'll see if we get it for the third time.
Are you saying that you can tell the future, or
No,
that
I'm saying
history
that
repeats itself?
I'm saying that I can occasionally recall what happened in the past and try to trick a couple people to make them think that I might know what's coming up in the future. You know, you were talking as Chappelle entered the court, and you said I'd be serving him, and it's interesting. I keep an eye over here on Coach Grosso, and the second that substitution occurred, that conversation happened. Yeah. But there it is once again. Jair Santiago goes to the backside, and Gianluca Grosso has been the Titan blocker all weekend. Got 2 yesterday, one-on-one against Ryan Mather, the right side from the Ramblers, and right now he gets the D-ball block against the giant Jair Santiago.
Player of the match right now, Grosso.
Chappelle out of system. Santiago goes, puts a tight ball up. Under the net is Chappelle. And with that, game, set, match in 4. The Texas Tyrants take down the OC Stunners. Wow.
What a well-played match by the Tyrants. Well-played, disciplined volleyball. They responded every time they needed to. The Stunners, they've got to look themselves in the mirror a little bit. You know, they need to figure out how they want to determine their style of play, because whatever it is right now, it's not so good for them.
Also not so good for them is single setter on the lineup. Spencer Andrews going down injured in a final play of the set. We'll have to get an update on exactly what just happened. Trainers have been called in, so hopefully they're able to get him taken care of. Up next on the matchups here, though, we're going to have Team Freedom squaring off against the Chicago Untouchables. Now, if you don't know origins of these teams, this one is going to be a blast. So the Chicago Untouchables, formerly many players of the Tennessee Tyrants,
Yep.
they share a lot of guys that are in the gym training against each other with those Team Freedom guys. So there is a large familiarity. But we're going to have a nice toss over to Victoria for a player of the match. Oh, apologies. One more second until they're ready to go. But that's going to be a great match. So if you haven't seen it yet, make sure to tune in. But throwing it over to you, Victoria. So take it away. What are we seeing?
Thanks, Nick. I'm here with CJ. CJ, incredible game against the Stunners. It was truly a battle back and forth the entire time. Big swings being taken by both teams, but defense won this game for you. What do you have to say about that?
I mean, honestly, I got to shout out to my blockers, the coach. You know, there's a lot of strategy to it. And the blockers did their job. You know, they touch the ball, and then the rest is pretty much me. So if they do their job, it makes my job a lot easier.
Definitely. What's the mentality coming off this big win into tomorrow?
Honestly, just keep climbing the ladder, honestly. I mean, we got a great team, great coaching staff. You know, it's all good news, honestly, yeah.
The camaraderie looks really tight out there. How do you feel as a team as a whole?
We're just family. That's it, honestly. We're one big family, and I love it.
Awesome. Thanks, CJ. Back to you.
Great to hear, and you hear the confirmation pretty quick. 4 days a week, they're a family already. But that's going to do it for us here. Awesome to see a libero get the nod for the player of the match. Well-deserved. Had a stellar performance. Stay tuned. We'll be back here in just a half hour as Team Freedom take on the other new team, the Chicago Untouchables. Don't miss it and stay tuned.